Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit, and it's my pleasure to bring you what may be the first of several big talks on the subject of Star Wars The Old Republic, and we've got a bit of a panel going on right here. I am the lowest level of the three because the other two people are power leveling scum. So just want to point that out. They're also both arrogant Sith Lords. So I would like to introduce to you first the managing director of CynicalBrit.com, as well as extraordinary voice actress Intricacy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm also married to you as far as I'm aware. This is true, right?
Last time I checked.
Just wanted to check that was still in place. Okay, and which class are you currently playing?
I am a Sith Inquisitor, Sorcerer.
Okay, and the highest level of the group, we're not entirely sure how that ended up happening, but it did anyway. It is the one and only Jesse Cox. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello, hello. I am also married to Jenna. Wait, shit,
what?
are we allowed to say that?
When the hell did that happen?
The things we learn here. Hi, everybody.
What are you playing exactly? What class?
Oh, I am playing a Sith Assassin.
All right. And I'm playing a bounty hunter with the Power Tech spec, which rhymes, by the way, which makes it better than yours. All right. We all played WoW for a very long time, and we also dabbled in other MMOs. For instance, Jesse, you dabbled in Rift.
Yeah, Rift, Final Fantasy 11, WoW, Age of Conan. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Some of the cheapo free-to-play ones way back in the day when free-to-play meant it was garbage. Yeah. Thankfully, that's changed, but yeah, I've dabbled in a few.
Yep, I played some DDO, I played a little bit of Lord of the Rings Online, obviously I used to play PlanetSide back in the day, and Jen, is there anything you haven't played? You used to play Asheron's Call, right?
Yeah, I played Asheron's Call, Dark Age of Camelot, Final Fantasy as well. There's really not much I haven't played. Guild Wars.
We played a bit of that. We played a little bit of Guild Wars, like for a couple of weekends, I think we played Guild Wars.
EVE Online.
That's true, we played that, yeah.
So, yeah, there's really no MMO I don't think I haven't at least tried out.
Yeah. And The Old Republic is, of course, the big release, and myself and Jesse have both done quite a lot of content on the subject, but what I wanted to do is to just sit down and hash out everything we think so far about this game. Everything we can, because reviewing an MMO is nigh on impossible.
Yeah, that is an accurate statement.
Indeed.
Of fact.
So
I am backing you up.
Yeah, we've kind of got a list of things that we're going to be talking about, most likely in a random order. But I think probably the first thing we should tackle is one of the big selling points of the Old Republic, and that is the idea of storyline.
Yeah, this game has an absolutely amazing story. I seriously thought that we were going to get KOTOR 3 out of this in a way, but it's kind of unusual with the MMO aspect thrown into it, but very easily, if you liked KOTOR, if you like a single-player game, there's no reason that this game won't be good for you. The story is impeccable, and it's really what draws you in.
I don't want to spoil anything since I'm ahead of you guys, but I will say that it technically is KOTOR 3. I mean, at some point in the story, you realize, like, this is a direct sequel to the first two games.
Yeah, I'm already getting a bit of that, actually, that I discovered on Drum and Cass. There was some stuff there that's like, this sounds like a potential major plot arc.
Oh, yeah. And it gets a lot deeper the higher level you get. And I think one of the cool things about the game, and we'll probably talk about this, is the fact that every class has a different way of getting to that point in the story. And so that replayability is through the roof on that. It's basically 8 different stories put together, which is terrific.
Yeah, it's something I was seeing as I was going through is the fact that the way that it tells the story, all of the major storytelling is done through the class quests, which means that you're going to see certain facets of the story as one class that you're not going to see as another, but it's all going to kind of come together. You're going to get an impression one way or the other, the way that you go through. And there are bits and pieces of it that seem to be general quests that you can do, but a lot of the general quests that are not class specific are sort of self-contained little stories that don't really tie into anything.
Right. And it's weird because I'm only 29 right now, but there's some people in my guild that are starting to hit 50, and that point where the things I'm hearing from them is it's starting to sound like the things you do in those self-contained quests affect stuff later on. So maybe they aren't as self-contained as we think they are, which has me a little worried because I've been a bad Sith.
That's a real kind of Sith, though, isn't it? And Jen, what kind of stuff have you been doing in terms of your morality up to this point?
Mostly trying to lean a little towards the light side, which my companion really hates, even though I know we'll talk about more about companion hate and love later. But yeah, I didn't at first. I wasn't really sure kind of what to do about it. It's kind of a tough choice because you're like, ooh, well, I'm Sith, it's automatically, the dark side, but do I have to be the kind of like the underdog who is good and overcomes these obstacles and is the beacon of light in a dark world? I don't know how to play it yet. I haven't really thought about the backstory for my personal character very much. I'm not the biggest RP person in the world, but yeah, for now, just to err on the side of caution, maybe, question mark, pretty much the light side.
I am ashamed. I'm ashamed for you and the Empire.
I'm the disgrace of the Empire.
We don't mention you. You're like the sibling we don't talk about anymore. The black sheep.
Yeah.
It's weird to go with Sith, isn't it? Because I think you can probably understand it a little bit more with the non-Force classes. For instance, Bounty Hunter. I'm finding some of the choices are actually financially beneficial to me, so I can take a light side choice and it will be in character. And honestly, some of the NPCs that I'm meeting, especially my handler in the Great Hunt, she's actually okay with that. She's kind of like you go girl with this, and it seems to work fairly well in that respect. And I suppose with the Imperial Agent as well, you can easily make the argument that it's better for the mission, or indeed that morality-wise, he doesn't really care one way or the other. He's going to take the choice that he feels is best for the mission or whatever. But I do find the idea of being a light side Sith Inquisitor very odd indeed.
and it's weird because with the Sith, especially as an Inquisitor, having played through some of that, they make it so fun to be evil. You'll be sitting there, and I just did a quest on Nar Shaddaa where you go meet this guy, and you have to convince him, I'm using air quotes, convince him to help you in your plan. And at first he's like, oh, I don't think I can, what if I get in trouble? Your options are, like, persuade him using the Force, try to talk him into it, or shock him. So you shock him. And then he's like, oh, please don't do that again. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? And you have the option to shock him again. Like, that is ridiculously fun. Why you wouldn't want to do that, I don't know.
No, but I do a lot, though. I do actually vary my choices. I'm kind of neutral, I guess you should say. I don't have a tier on either side.
You can do both, can't you? You can actually do... I'm pretty sure one doesn't actually decrease the other. It's just two separate meters.
I'm not sure. I thought it was 1 meter, and you have a neutral and a dark and light.
Either way.
I may be wrong there. Yeah, I may very much be wrong there.
Because
yeah, that's some kind of neutral.
I think, and this is why a lot of people, I've been posting videos of like cutscenes and stuff that I do, and I get a lot of flack from people who are like, you're just choosing dark side points. You wouldn't even do that. That's not how you play games. Well, of course not, but this is my main character, and I'm trying to stack as much dark side as possible. I mean, I am playing a game, but at the same time, I think I wouldn't be doing as much of that if they had neutral or well, I'm trying to think of what that middle ground is. That like
so gray area choices and things like that.
If they had benefits for that, because if you go dark side or light side, you get armor and weapons and things that you can only get by getting dark side 2 or 3 or 4. There's nothing for neutral. There's nothing in the game. I think they said they're going to put something in, but right now you get no benefit for trying to play it like, Han Solo would. Straight down he does whatever in the best interest of him. So he does dark side, light side choices. You don't get anything for that. And I think if you're playing a smuggler or a bounty hunter or an Imperial agent or a trooper, that would be perfect for you, is to have like benefits in that gray area. But that's not in the game yet. And I think that's
not. You're right, incidentally. I did check. It is one does actually decrease the other, so I was evidently misinformed on that one. But yeah, it's... There are very few grey area choices. This is actually a problem I've had with BioWare for ages, and I think only Dragon Age, the original, really did a decent job of this, and I suppose to a degree Mass Effect, because that really wasn't bad or good, even though a lot of the stuff was blatantly bad, like shove the guy out the window, or set the guy on fire. And it's like, oh yeah, that wasn't a good choice, but the BioWare has always been really bad when it comes to morality because they treat it like a child. They have a very simple binary way of looking at morality. And KOTOR was incredibly bad for that. KOTOR 2 was much better because it wasn't by BioWare. KOTOR 2's morality was much more grey because Obsidian did it. But BioWare's KOTOR, like the morale choices in the original Knights of the Old Republic were the dumbest, most binary thing. It's like, be an angel and save the orphans, or kill the orphans with lightning. It's like it was comedically evil to the point where it was utterly unbelievable. I've basically taken one dark side choice this entire time, which I felt was actually fairly reasonable. But a lot of the others, for me, they weren't comedically evil, but I imagine the Sith ones must be.
Some of them are, you have choices whether or not to, basically drag back a scientist to this encampment at some point, and the only things that you get are, you can try to persuade him, and he just kept denying and denying. So, it's like, I tried to play it good. I tried to calmly and rationally tell this guy to come back to make this potion that's going to save the lives of all these people, and he wouldn't do it. So I knocked him out and drug him back. So, even if you try to play goody two-shoes, no. Tor does not want you to play goody two-shoes when you're Sith.
Well,
no.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair, though, isn't it? Because some of the stuff is unrealistically silly. If you're playing a Sith, yes, being like a really good guy and basically following the Jedi Code really isn't an option for you. As a bounty hunter, I think we get more flexibility, but then you still have to think about the quests that we all do, all the shared ones.
Right, yeah. I think it's really weird how they set it up, and I think they have a strange... I guess if you play on the Empire or if you play on the Jedi, from what I've been able to tell, no matter what you do, if you're on the Empire side, if you go light side or dark side, you will never betray the Empire. So if your mission is to take over a planet, you can take over the planet either on like good guy terms or on just being completely evil and electrocuting everyone. But no matter what, you're still going to take over that planet for the Empire.
You take it for the Empire, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
And just like the Jedi, you can be this upstanding, wonderful, pure Jedi, or you can be super evil and do whatever you want. But in the end, you're doing it for the Republic. So you can't be super evil. Like, you can't switch sides on people. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, you're still stuck with your general allegiance, and I suppose that would have to be the case for the mechanics of the game to even work. And switching that isn't gonna be an option.
And I think with that, because the Empire in this game is the Empire, and they're not very nice, a lot of the things they do seem very evil, and the choices, it seems a lot easier to go the evil path. I think if you wanted to play for maximum morality checks, I would pick a Jedi Consular or Knight. Mm-hmm. Go dark side in that, because right off the bat, seriously, right off the bat, on I think it's like maybe level 6, 7, 8, you get a quest where it's 2 Jedi masters come up to you and they're like, we can't find our apprentices, our Padawans. They're out somewhere. We know they're off doing it and they're in love. You have to go put a stop to this. When you find them, of course, they're like making out and stuff. But it comes down to the choice. You get 2 choices here. Your light side choice, which is go back and report them, have them booted out of the order, basically making them homeless, or letting them go on with their affair, getting dark side points. Like, that's super like, you ruin 2 people's lives, but like preserve the purity of the Jedi, or you let them go about their thing and you take one for the team and become, get like 100 dark side points for it. Like, that's real morality right there. That's deep. I was like, oh, I can't play this. So I went light side and I felt bad. I was like, well, I need my light side points, but I felt bad for it because really, they were just 2 kids in love. So that's tough. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I like that. The bounty hunter doesn't have stuff like that, because the bounty hunter is going to do whatever the bounty hunter wants to do in order to actually earn credits. And most of the time, even if you take the good option, the guy's still going to pay you. So it really doesn't matter so much. I think we've got a lot more. I haven't made many hard choices as the bounty hunter so far. Let me put it that way.
Right. I mean, and I think anyone who plays a Sith can agree. If you play a Sith character, your choices aren't like being bad. It isn't hard. It's just it's like a fun thing to do. Like, there's quests where there's a quest chain on Narshada where you meet this girl and this guy who I assume are dating, but you seduce the girl. She shows you around the place, air quotes, you do it. And then later on, like 4 quests later, you can kill her if you want. And you do it just because you're bad. And I have no problem with it because I know that being a bad guy is so simple in this game. Like it's just fun. And it's like you get to do stuff that you wouldn't normally do any other time in any other game because you're a Sith and that's what you can do.
Exactly.
And I think they made being a bad guy too easy. Because all I do is click a button like you're dead. And I'm like, oh, well, that was fun. Save myself from doing that quest.
The day that you can wake up and do a quest where some guy tells you to take his cheating wife out on an escort mission and you get to shoot her point blank in the face because she cheated on her husband. It's a good day when an MMO gives you such complex things like that to achieve so early in the morning.
It's a mature MMO, I think is
definitely
wouldn't have to go escort someone who was cheating on someone in, let's say, I don't know, like WoW, for example. Like there is no like Agra's been cheating on Thrall, right?
Take her out and shoot her in the face with an arrow.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that you can say about the storytelling in Stotor. What the hell is Stotor? Stotor is this new game where there's basically a bunch of ferrets and they're fighting with lightsabers.
What it's called now? It's from now on. It's Stotor. Continue.
Stotor, yeah, indeed. The thing is that WoW doesn't really have any storytelling. Like outside of a few bits of cutscenes, the storytelling is ham-fisted and weak. That's the thing that I would say about WoW. Whereas here, you don't really have a choice but to have a story told to you. You can skip through all the dialogue. You're still going to get little cutscenes and things like that. You're still going to be dragged along the story. Every time you log in, you're going to be reminded of what the story is by that fantastic little screen that comes up, which I think is a genius idea because
Agreed.
If I logged into WoW, it's like, what am I doing today? I can't remember. Why am I doing it? XP, you know?
Exactly.
And here, it's like the game forces you to care. It doesn't matter how much you try, it's going to shove it in your face. And I think some people aren't going to like that, but for me, it's such a breath of fresh air, because this storytelling gives all of the mundane crap that I'm doing context.
That's actually really true, and now that I think about it, most of the people you're killing, and I use the word people, are not like, go hunt 10 moon rats. I don't know what a moon rat. Go hunt moon rats, right? You're not killing a lot of creatures. Most of the time, your quest is such and such needs this item. Like
go get this.
Lord Vash Vash. What the hell?
Lord
Zash
and
is
Lady
like, hey, I
Vash.
need these items
Of the House of Vash, yes.
He's like, I need these items to kill someone.
Yeah.
And you're gonna collect them for me. And you're like, okay. And then while you're doing that, you may get a quest because you kill a guy and it says kill 10 more of these.
Yeah,
and you don't have
bonus
to,
quest, yeah.
but you get bonus XP for it. Or you're in an area and some guy's like, oh well, nice of you to show up here. There's these guys over there who need, right? It isn't a lot of like bounty board quests. Like it feels fluid as you're going through an area.
There are some of those. I've got to point that out. Before anyone thinks
true.
that they've gotten rid of collect 6 cat teeth. No, there are 6 cat teeth quests. There are quests where it's like kill 10 of these, but they're nowhere near as prevalent as in WoW, and they're often put in there as bonuses. So when you go into an area, it'll also start what's called a bonus chain. A lot of the heroic areas have that, and we'll get onto that a bit later into how the systems actually work. And it's like, that's the bit that's like, this is the MMO part. Yeah, this has got to be in here because we're playing MMO. This is not important to the story. Do it if you want to do it. If you don't, we don't care. We're not going to stop you advancing the storyline arc because you didn't kill 20 of these dudes.
And that's why bonus areas are so amazing. I don't know if you've had the experience of that yet, but after you complete an area of the story, I think it starts with Balmora, and then
it does.
Goes, like, after that point, when you complete your main storyline, you can leave the planet. But if you want, you can stay there and finish up all the quests and get the XP from it. And so you don't have... and the quests are like additional bonus things. So, for example, after Balmora, you defeat the Rebel Arms Depot. And it's like, yeah, you saved the day. And then as you're leaving, a guy approaches you, and it's the governor's like aide. And he's like, oh no, the rebels, they're back. And they're launching their final attack. You have to help us. And you can if you want, or you can move on. And it gives you that added XP, gives you a little bit more story if you care that much about it. But really, that's the MMO part. So you can play a single player game the entire way through, or do these bonus things, and those are like you need 2 people to do this or 4 people, and that's sort of like the MMO aspect of this game. And I think they pulled it off really well. I'm quite impressed.
Yeah, I have to wonder if any of the storytelling stuff, none of the class quest stuff is in heroic areas, is it?
No, none of it is.
So yeah, so you can single player the whole way through.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you can, if you're just after the class story, yeah, no problem. You can do it. And you can go through all of those quests. You can leave each planet. You can ignore everything else and play it as a single player game. And that is something that is not supported in a lot of other MMOs. It really is not. I think WoW has done so more just because they give you too much XP now. I mean, the way that they've accelerated it, because it used to be in WoW, you pretty much had to go and do this instance in order to actually get the experience, because like all the quests are going to be in there. Otherwise, you're going to be grinding mobs for 3 levels, because there's no other way to get that experience. You're not going to do it. They've changed that now, but because they accelerated everything so much, it just doesn't matter anymore. I mean, we'll get on to experience, because I know you've got some issues with the way that experience is doled out in this game. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about mechanics. This game, if you want it to be purely story-driven and cut the MMO stuff down to a minimum, you're still going to have to do some of it. Don't get me wrong, you're still going to have to collect 6 cat teeth at some point, but you can cut the majority of that out.
I think there are some people out there who probably would have rather had KOTOR 3 than pay $15 a month
for
an MMO.
No doubt. I'm actually arguably one of them. I've the only BioWare RPG that I have not beaten is Dragon Age 2, because it's awful. The rest of them, I played through entirely. To think of, what was it, whenever Dragon Age came out, to think about me playing a 100-hour RPG now, I would laugh in your face. It's like, ha! I've played 2 hours of Skyrim. That's how much time I have. You know, I can't do that. But I make an effort to beat every BioWare RPG. I beat Mass Effect 2 earlier this year, and I did it in a fairly reasonable time frame as well, because I love BioWare RPGs and I want to see the end of the story. Now, do we have any final thoughts on storyline specifically? I mean, do we want to transition to talking about the voice acting a little bit here? Because it kind of does tie together.
We can.
Yeah, if you want to.
We can talk about how the entire empire is based in England and everyone else are just foreigners.
Some are in Wales. I can't take the Welshmen seriously. I had a Welshman get really angry at me earlier, and apparently, I think the Sith Lordess or whatever was Welsh, and I just like, oh god, I'm gonna pick the most sarcastic responses I can find, because you are Welsh and I can't take you seriously. I'm sorry, Welsh fans, but you can't sound evil if you're Welsh.
The worst part is then there is a quest later on where you're on Balmora and you meet a guy and he's like, "Hey there. How's it going?" And one of your responses is you go, "You don't sound like an Imperial." Like, yes! It's that kind of cliche.
I was telling John about that earlier. It was great.
But when it comes to overall, like, voice acting quality, I would say, like, 99% of the voices are really well done.
Yeah.
It's a little sad that, I guess this is just from, watching a lot of stuff and recognizing voices, but it's a little sad when they pick certain voice actors who are really well known and say, do all these voices. Because now,
Stephen Blum. Blum. That's the worst thing.
He is the Hutball guy. He's like
bad as the Hutball guy. He's the assistant huntmaster as well for bounty hunters, and he's bad there too. It's like what is going on?
Well, my thing is that he is, honestly, I can truly say this. He is like one of the reasons I love voice acting and got into it.
Yeah, he's incredible.
The problem I have, he's very, very good.
Yeah.
The problem I have, though, is you can't overuse him, because Steve Bloom, for all he has, he's the man of that one voice.
Yes.
His voice is that, like, the deep, raspy, he's Spike from Cowboy Bebop. He will always be that character, just different places. And the thing is that they said, basically, be that voice, different accents. So at one point, you meet this guy who it's him, but with a Spanish accent. Or the Hutball guy, it's him just being, like, really rowdy. But it's basically Steve just doing different accents.
Yeah, and you get it immediately. You spot it immediately. And
right, there is no hiding from it. It's him, and then Jennifer Hale. I've said this many times. The two of them, if they ever have a baby, God help the voice acting community because no one else would get any work. They're in everything. And the fact that she, especially BioWare games, Jennifer Hale is in like every BioWare game in existence. And so she plays 90% of the female characters in this game. And so it's weird because as you play through it, when you start off, everyone has a different voice. It's amazing. But the further you get into the game and you start meeting like new like characters that have one or two lines, they all have those two voices. I guarantee they were in the recording session and just like, here's some, just read these off for us. And you're just like, oh my God. Yeah.
It sucks for the three of us because to greater and lesser extents, we've all worked in professional voice acting. We've all done jobs for pay. And I mean, I've done the least of it. Jen's done sort of medium, and of course, I think you've done the most. And we all spot this stuff easier than anyone else would.
Right. I know a lot of people in my guild, I was complaining about it while we were doing Hotball. I was like, is that Steve Blum's voice? I was like so mad at the time. I was like, he's everywhere in this game. But
and no, everyone's like, who's that?
Oh yeah, no. The worst part is it's not like I'm mad. I think it's strict jealousy. Like, I'll be honest about it. I'm a little freaking jealous. I'm a little jealous. This guy is everywhere. But
if we get 1 or 2 jobs a year, we're lucky. We're like thanking our lucky stars.
Yeah, if I get something that isn't like, yeah, we'll give you $25 for this. Like, what? Like, you know, a real job.
Yeah.
And so I'm just cracking up at just how ridiculous this is. But a lot of people don't notice it. And I think maybe it's because, you know, we have that ear for trying to figure out who's who and how they did it. And I think we listen to lines a little bit better. Or I don't want to say better. That's kind of an asshole thing to say.
It's true,
a little bit closer than other people.
We look at it as inspiration in a way, you know? In a way, it's like, you know, well, I wonder what this voice would sound like if I did it. And you're always playing that through your head, no matter what game you're playing, I think.
Oh, and reads, like how they read a line. Like there's a lot of, there's sometimes I'll play a game and I'll wonder what the director was thinking because you know, you can't always blame a voice actor for what the line read is because you know there's someone on the other side who's saying, read it like this, right? And so they're telling you how to, so a lot of times people are being fed directions on how to read stuff. And so sometimes there are lines which you're just like, you really can tell they're in 2 separate rooms or recorded like 3 weeks apart because there's no way they're talking to each other. Like someone's like, hey, how's it going? And the guy's like, hello, how are you? Like, what?
Mud crabs, disgusting creatures. Goodbye.
It's horrible. Yeah, so there's a little bit of that, but I think for the most part, 99%, even my jealousy of Steve Blum's characters, 99% of the voice acting is stellar.
It's
and it really grips you. Yeah.
Really good. Some of it is hilarious as well. Like some of it's unintentionally hilarious. Some is amazingly hilarious. The Imperial City, you know, in Drummond Cass, a lot of the guys, especially if you talk to a noble, that's the funniest thing. And especially if you're an alien talking to a noble, that's even funnier because they've recorded different lines depending on who you are. And it's not just class-based, it's race-based. So I ran into these 2 racist as hell nobles, and they referred to me as it all the time. And one of them said to the other, is like, oh, you know, don't deceive it into thinking that we approve. You know, it's like, don't talk to it like that. It'll think that we approve of it. And it's like, this is the funniest thing. And then that spurs you on to make the most sarcastic response you can come up with. And you know that none of that makes a difference. Like, you can get through the dialogue regardless. If it's not a dark side choice or a light side choice, that dialogue choice is most likely not going to make a blind bit of difference. But it's going to generate a different line of dialogue from them. And that, I think, is where the role-playing aspect comes in, which is actually something that a lot of MMOs don't have. They call them MMORPGs, but the amount of actual role-playing that's going on in that is minimal. But here, you are playing a role, even if it's a role that doesn't really affect anything, because of the dialogue choices that you pick.
And it also affects, I think, your companion as well.
Yes,
which is
it does, yeah.
Feature.
Yeah.
And of course, that changes how you say some things. Like, as a Sith Inquisitor, you have this dude, Kemval, and I think I figured him out. Essentially, everyone below a Sith is junk and crap, and you don't give them any heed or pay attention to them. Treat them like garbage. Always talk down to people, and just be a mean, general, you know, bad guy. The problem is there's some choices that you think are really mean and evil, but he'll be like, oh, well, no, I frown upon that. It's like,
Yeah.
really? So
He hates me. He hates me right now. I've been trying
That's
to
'cause you're
give him
light side.
gifts.
Yeah.
No, it's not even just that. I mean, he hates Force users particularly. So, I'm thinking, oh, well, he's gonna love being able to massacre all these people. And no, he just stares at me and talks to me. He says that we need to go to the cantina or to the ship to talk because he doesn't approve of my ways. And then it's just it's like I feel like I'm being, carted around by a parent here. I mean, he is pretty ancient after all. But,
Yeah. That dude is kind of scary. When I first saw him, it's like, that's the companion you get? I basically get this slight girl who has a HoloNet interface, a top secret HoloNet interface in her head. They find this out in the first, 5 minutes. And who's got also kind of a serious vengeance streak because of what happens very early on in the Bounty Hunter storyline, which I won't spoil for people. But she's interesting because she's not obvious. She's professional in the sense that Bounty Hunter specific choices, where you're saying something that makes you sound like a professional hunter that's not kind of emotional, that's what she likes. She likes credits, but she doesn't like you being overly greedy, and she also likes it when you joke around with certain people. Like, for instance, we both basically teamed up on this poor male receptionist and took the piss out of him for about 5 minutes, and I'm pretty sure I got 200 affection points from it. Every joke I made, she approved and had a follow-on for, and it's like, these characters are actually quite complex, and you know what? I like that.
Just small voice acting note, since I'm in that frame of mind right now. That girl is the voice of Amy on Futurama.
Yes, it is.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah,
I spotted another one. This is the one that really got to me. Darth Malgus, the guy who plays Darth Malgus, is the same guy who was Father in Equilibrium.
Really?
Yeah.
That guy's awesome, by the way. Darth Malgus I would follow that guy anywhere. I love him.
Yeah,
He's bad,
Sean
man.
Pertwee. Sean Pertwee is the name of the guy. He is a famous actor. He has been in all sorts of really good stuff. He was in Law and Order at one point. And he's also been in a few games as well. He was in Killzone 2. He was in Fable 2. And he was, let's see what else. He's been in unbelievable amounts of stuff.
It's I think the companion system it's hard to crack exactly what you can do with them. And what's even stranger is they added the love component as well, so you can have a relationship with. I feel bad for anyone playing a male Sith Inquisitor. You pretty much get all guys except for one girl, and the only way you can romance her is if you go light side. So I was like, well, I'm gonna probably have to kill her. But what's really cool is if you go dark side, the girl you get is a Jedi, and she's a Padawan, and you get her when she's just starting her training. So the storyline there is essentially you can corrupt her and make her evil. Or on the other side, you can, if you're light side, the two of you will try to unite the Republic and the Empire together, which I think is kind of there's all sorts of paths you can go within your own storyline of you and your companions besides what's going on in the bigger galaxy. There's so much to do in this game. I think story-wise, this game is probably the best story-based MMO I've seen in a long time. I think Final Fantasy XI was really good story-wise because it told a solid story through 3 major expansions. But the way this is starting off, it really draws you in. I know a lot of people who are like, I didn't care too much about WoW story, but they started playing this, and suddenly it's because, like you said, it forces you to.
Yeah, I didn't give a damn about WoW story. The thing that I think people have to understand is that WoW story is bad. It really, really is. It doesn't even tell a story anywhere near as well as Warcraft 3 did. That's the real thing about it. It's there are no epic cutscenes in WoW in the same way that Warcraft 3 told its story, and there's less voice acting that really matters in that game as well, and there's so many bizarre distractions, especially in Cataclysm. The game in many places became a parody of itself, and it's impossible to really get immersed in it when you're doing quests that involve plants versus zombies and nonsense like that. The game, Tor doesn't take itself seriously all the time, but you can't help but be immersed in what the universe is because the game grabs you by the throat and forces you to do it. And I suppose some people are going to be skipping that dialogue. I've heard a lot of people say, "I just skip all the dialogue." And I'm like, you're missing the major bit of the game and every BioWare game if you do that.
I couldn't bring myself to skip the dialogue. I mean, not just, as a voice actor, you always want to listen to the dialogue, but just for the story in general. I'm scared though in case they make like expansions, because if you think about it, the voice actors who did your character's voice, I wonder if those things will change in future. Voice actors don't last all the time. I mean, they do have a lifespan, I've been told. I mean, Jennifer Hale has attained immortality in voice acting, but not on planet Earth. So I'm worried about the immersion as it comes to things like expansions. Will that throw people off?
They have, this was what Stephen Reed was telling me when I interviewed him a few days ago. They have signed every voice actor that matters in that game to a long-term contract. And there is already a bunch of voice acting for not just like the next patch. Apparently they're working like 6 months in advance of what we're seeing at least. Like there's some stuff that's been recorded that might even not be coming in for another year. So I think they've pretty much got that covered, and it seems like they've got that nailed down, and they understand that it would be a big problem for people.
I don't. No, by all means, ladies first.
No, I mean it's great to prepare for the coming year and everything, but if you look at the lifespan of an MMO, for example, you think about WoW, and was 7 years now. You can't just plan really for a year ahead when it comes to an MMO unless you're planning for its death. So, I'm just looking forward to seeing what kind of changes they make to combat, that as a potential issue. I mean, obviously it's pretty early to be thinking about that, I guess, because it just launched, but it's just always something in the back of my mind, because immersion for me in this game is probably paramount of everything else. I mean, I got into this game 2 days ago. I went through, and now I'm like level 23. Normally, I don't do that with a game, not even WoW, even though as much as I actually like the WoW universe, it's not something for everyone, but I like the fact that there are different fragmented stories with each faction, but you're right, there is no big overall arcing theme. So for this, it really is like the immersion and the story are what makes or breaks this game for me, and I don't think I'm the only one. So
it's its biggest strength. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I mean, we could say that there are arcs in WoW. WoW each expansion has an arc. It has a big arc, which is defeat the big bad. It has been for the last 6 years, but I just think it ham-fists it. It doesn't tell it well.
Well,
right.
I think when it comes to WoW, unfortunately, it came out in a really weird period where all MMOs were a certain way. You had to have your group, you had to do this, the one quest led to this, but it was group-oriented, group-based. And what they did is they focused less, like vanilla WoW, they focused less on setting up this story thing and more of a, hey, you want to play a game where you can play by yourself or with friends, do whatever you want to do, and we'll throw in some cool features from Warcraft 3. Oh, remember this area? Well, that's in the game. Right? They added things in there to make it sort of this fun experience, but it wasn't story based. And then they did Burning Crusade, which was sort of taking that first one to the next level. And what happened was people said, why are we killing this Illidan guy? Like, there was no story behind, like, well, unless you play Warcraft 3 or were a fan of the lore, you didn't care. And so they decided to change that in Wrath. And I thought the storyline for Wrath was really good.
Yes, it was.
Be the first to admit
that was the biggest strength, I think, of Wrath. And I said this in the beta, and I said it all the way through the expansion as well when I was talking on the podcast, is that the leveling in Wrath and the way that they tell the story was stronger than in any other expansion.
Right. And then I think they tried for Cataclysm because they saw our game's aging, right? We're 3 expansions in, but we already show signs of age. Let's see what we can do to flip things up. And they changed the script. They made it. I think there are some things they did better, and I think there are some things they did worse. Unfortunately, I think they put all their eggs into the let's make the level 1 through 60 experience better, which, by the way, I think it is. I think it's a lot better.
Yeah, it is.
But Endgame, they sort of just dropped the ball on. And that's my fear with Star Wars. And I had this fear when I played Rift, is when you hit level 50, that's when the game actually starts. Everything up to that point is going to be fun no matter what game you play, unless the game's really bad. But most games, that until you hit cap, you're having fun, you're playing with your friends, you're doing whatever. You hit that cap, that's when you tell if the game's going to be any good. And so I honestly don't know what Star Wars holds because I don't know what's at 50. I've never gotten there.
Yeah. What I understand of 50 is it's very similar to the experience of vanilla WoW, only it's got PvP in from the very start. If we can, I think, get out of the storyline now and start talking about systems here and PvE and PvP as well, because I think we've covered this in enough detail now to make it very clear that, yes, the storytelling is a really big strength of Tor. But if we talk about endgame, what I understand is there is one endgame raid at the moment, aside from the world bosses. We're not going to count that stuff yet. There is one endgame raid, and that is, I think, the Eternity Vault, if I recall correctly. They have already announced, I'm just going to check Darth Hater for this, which is an excellent resource I might add for Tor stuff. Very, very good indeed. Let's James Olin teases post-launch contact, Flashpoint and expanded operation right there. So, yeah, apparently next month they're going to release a new Flashpoint and expanded operation. And the operation is raiding. So they are adding more into that. So there's one raid currently. There's 3 battlegrounds, which I suppose is kind of to be expected. I know some people have said, oh, well, why aren't there like as many as WoW? Because WoW's had 6 years of post-launch content development to get that many. It's as simple as that. You can't just create that many battlegrounds out of thin air and launch them all with an MMO and expect it all to work. There are balance issues you have to consider. There are, of course, population issues you have to consider. You also don't want to scare the crap out of people with 12 different kinds of battleground straight away. People are just learning the game. That's silly. But
and learning battlegrounds is key because people suck at battlegrounds. I will just say it now.
Yes,
if they don't know how to do it, they're horrible at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing to do, aside from obviously rerolling, because like there's a legacy system that they're implementing, which is it's kind of like, from what I understand of the legacy system, it's sort of like having heirloom items, but it goes further than that. It goes into story, like taking a surname of your previous character and earning some stuff from the fact that you've leveled up another character. There's obviously the alt experience is something that they're trying to focus on a lot as well. And aside from that, there's heroics and the crafting and pretty much everything you would expect, and the higher level space combat missions as well. And we could talk about that later as well, I guess.
Yeah, after hearing like all that stuff, it just really makes you, I don't know, take a step back when you think about that compared to so many other MMOs. And we're talking about like upon release, for example. WoW Vanilla upon release. How many dungeons, how many
There were no raids on release. You know,
exactly.
They joined Onyxia soon after that, and then Molten Core in its very broken state. And it wasn't there in time. There's no doubt about that. And then you've had a lot of other MMOs that have launched without an endgame. Star Trek Online, prime example. Bugger all endgame in that. And people blitzed through that game. I don't know how they did it without getting bored, because the ground combat in that game was some of the worst MMO combat I've ever seen. But they blitzed through to maximum level, and they had nothing to do other than PvP. Absolutely nothing. And the PvP in that game wasn't that great.
Right. So, I mean, I think that anyone who takes the stance, oh, well, how does this stack up against an MMO that's been around since dinosaurs roamed the earth? Well, maybe not that old, but it seems like that old. I think a lot of their claims are sort of, rocky foundation right there, because it's just my personal experience with MMOs from date of launch. So far, I am so over the moon with how many things that this game actually offers by comparison to any other MMO I've played. I just, I think that, all those things that you have listed it should be enough initiative for anyone to at least pick up the game and give it a go, because there is something for everyone.
I think that they have shown a degree of understanding that they have to have at least some kind of end game. Because there will be power levelers, and you can't rely on people to simply do all of the storylines and all of the side missions and roll alts and spend some time in PvP. Some people are not going to do that. They're going to blitz to max level, and then they're going to try and find something to do. And there is something to do. I don't think there's necessarily enough. I think that one raid is probably not enough. But if they say they're going to launch an expanded raid within a month, then that's good. I mean, that is not the same as what we saw with WoW in any expansion or even vanilla. We're talking about we've had 2 expansions at least where they haven't launched another raid for 6 months. And I think that, what was the worst? Wrath was the worst for that. 6 months with no new raid from launch. And it took you 3 days, probably less, to get to max level.
I think it's I guess we'd have to look back at WoW and sort of like pay homage to that. This is my little like WoW butt kiss, because when it comes down to it, a lot of people are saying Star Wars basically is ripping off WoW. And I'll be honest with you, I think it is too.
It is.
But it took the best parts of WoW and any other game I've played. They basically like chopped all the great parts out of those games and said, we've had the experience. Like, WoW set the stage for everyone else.
Well, WoW did the same thing as what you're just saying. It took the best parts of EverQuest, Asheron's Call, and so forth, and put them into one accessible game.
Yeah, it's gaming evolution. What happened is they took everything, like you said, WoW took all these ideas, put them into one. And then you had that 7-year period where everyone got to see how this game emerged, became the biggest MMO out there, and then how over time players have developed and left or joined, and what caused. I think Star Wars, BioWare saw that and was like, okay, we need to have these raids here. We need to do this. They basically took this WoW model and are now manipulating it to give gamers, I think, the best experience possible. And I hope that they can keep that up. Like saying we're going to have in a month we're going to do this, and later on I think they said they're going to have guild like battleship cruisers and stuff. Like, by the way, that's awesome. Thank you.
That would be awesome.
I wanted my WoW house forever. Now I get this. That's great.
Yeah. So DDO did that. They've basically nicked that entirely, and that's fine because it's a great system. DDO had guild airships, which basically you had to collect the parts for and get appropriate reputations for various bits, and then those ships had sockets, and you could then socket it with various useful things, like stuff that buffed your crafting, and there was, of course, teleporters to get to various areas. Great, steal that, because I think one of the best things about being in a guild is cooperating towards a goal, and having a guild battleship, perfect. That's absolutely fantastic. It's a really solid idea to go for. By all means, steal ideas from other games, because WoW did it, and WoW did it very well. And I'm not knocking WoW for stealing ideas. In fact, it's the best thing it could have possibly did. It took previous MMOs and refined it down to the point that WoW is now the gold standard that we're comparing this game to. And that should speak volumes.
Yeah. And that I think is the key, is that people were complaining that Star Wars is too much like WoW. I would simply say Star Wars is so much like WoW that the transition over, if you choose to play this game, is so simple.
Effortless.
Like,
yeah.
And once you play, you start to see all the things that you were missing while playing WoW that you kind of like, God, guess I gotta go raid on Tuesday, don't I? Maybe I'll call in sick. Like one of those things where like you're still playing WoW, you're like, oh God, I gotta go back, huh? Like it's such a good, the things they put into it. It's not to say there aren't problems. There are quite a few problems.
And we'll come on to that, definitely.
But the overall gameplay in the game and the way they present it, like we said, they took everything that was good and stole it. And they don't even, I think they've even said in interviews, like, we took the best parts of other games.
Yeah.
They don't even hide it.
Why
and I
would
think
they?
that's great because it makes for a good game.
Yeah, it's the same thing I said about Rift. It's okay to steal this stuff. I mean, Rift was incredibly blatant about it, and a lot of people got on my ass for saying that, but the Trial Worlds guys admitted it, for God's sake. I mean, I was going down a Fire Mage tree in Rift with my earlier level character. Everything was the same. The abilities were identical. They just had slightly different names. They had the same cooldowns, the same damage range. That's how close it was. The talent trees were identical. And that's okay, as long as you offer what the other game did, but a bit better. And this is what I'm seeing. Like, I'm not seeing parts of TOR that WoW does better. In fact, I'm seeing everything that the TOR does. It does at least as well as WoW, if not slightly improved. Say, we could talk a little bit about companions, for instance. The companion gathering system. The fact that in WoW, you see a copper ore node, you got to go mine it with your pickaxe. In TOR, you see a node, you right-click on it, your companion goes to get it. Or you can mine it yourself if you shift right-click, but your companion goes to get it, and you can continue running on. You don't have to stop for that node, and your companion will catch up with you again once he or she has mined it.
You don't even have to look for the nodes. You can just
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
spend a few bucks and send your companion on a quest, and they'll go quest. You'll get the bump in you'll get your gain for whatever, slicing or whatever, and then you'll get items for it.
Yeah.
And your companion will leave. It'll take like 3, 5, 6, 8, as you increase the level, it goes up.
Yeah.
But that is the most genius thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm so mad that that's not in WoW, that it like, I gotta go spend 20 minutes crafting now. This is, you send people to go do it and you go on your way and quest.
Well, you know why they did
awesome.
that, right? I mean, the way that it's designed and the way that the game's designed is like, if you're in a questing area, you don't really want to be without your companion, because you can transition into an area where suddenly you find semi-elites or elites very quickly. They are not afraid of throwing those at you, and you're probably going to want your companion with you, otherwise you're going to get your ass kicked. But if you're in a city area, which is traditionally, let's say, Orgrimmar, where people idle or screw around, and basically the time that you spend is not efficient time. You don't really get anything out of it. In those cities, and in, say, the Imperial Fleet location, you can make that time worth something. As soon as you get to that location, you know you don't need your companion with you. You say to your companion, go get this done. Either go and make me this item, and you can queue up to 5 crafting items if you want to make something with your crafting skill. You queue up 5 items, she's going to bugger off and go and do that. And there's even the possibility of critical successes, so you get a exceptional version of the item, or you gain a schematic, for instance. And then, as you were saying, there's the gathering quests, which are, even there, they put a little bit of lore into them. You can read it if you like. It'll tell you what your guy's about to go off and do. Like, for instance, I can send one off to, there's basically a swap meet for grade 1 scavenged compounds going on over here. Go and negotiate. And you pay a small amount of money because it doesn't want you sitting in the city all day doing this without actually going out and adventuring. You need money to do this. So you can go and have that happen, and while you are handing in your quests and stuff, your companion is doing something useful. So your time is more quality time than it is in any other game.
Well, I mean, even if you're, out grinding, leveling, you do get additional companions along the way.
Yeah.
And you can send them out. My droid basically sits in my ship.
That annoying,
useless
droid. Yeah.
Sits around, but, great voice, of course, but it gets a bit annoying after a while.
He's
just send him off on a mission. Yes. But yeah, send him off on a mission while you still have your primary companion with you to do stuff. I mean, to think of the fact that you get, 5 companions total once you complete the act.
For each class, that's something to point out. That aside from that protocol droid, I think that none of them are shared.
Right.
None.
So if you think about it, you're out questing with your one companion. You have 4 other people that you could be sending off to do crafting. Sometimes crafting can take days on really high level stuff.
Apparently, yeah.
You get tired, that's cool. You can log out, and guess what? That crafting still keeps happening when you're logged out. It's very reminiscent of Eve for me, how you can still train things over the course of days without ever having to log in.
Oh yeah, they nicked it from there, clearly, which is fine. They should.
But that's amazing. That is incredible. It looks to me like what Tor did is it basically looked for all the cries of help across the course of MMOs. They listened to what people actually wanted, which is something that I think WoW has not done for a very long time. And maybe it's fan service to some people, but I'm sorry, I don't believe that WoW has taken into account the travesty that Cataclysm caused all of the people who actually legitimately raided all 3 expansions. Oh my gosh.
Well, we all did, didn't we? We've all done that.
Right. So I definitely think, and it sounds like, that we should rename this whole thing, Intricacy loves Tor. I'm not trying to,
Well,
I
think we all love Tor to varying degrees. We're going to get onto the problems momentarily. We're trying to explain, I suppose,
why we have an obsession.
Well,
why
if I'm honest, having briefly read the comments on my channel before wanting to set most of the people on fire, I'm sorry, I'm a bounty hunter. That's what I do. What I've seen from a lot of people is WoW clone, WoW clone. It's a WoW clone, and what we're trying to say is that yeah, you're right. It is a WoW clone, except it has improved on the original design in every respect.
Can I at least mention one great thing? This is such an amazing thing for me. Cross region.
Yes.
US, EU, selecting your server I I cannot even begin how much trouble WoW has given me in that respect. I have 4 WoW accounts, 2 EU, 2 US, different servers. Before Battle.net, you could put them all together, but you could never play with your friends, all of your friends, until now, when you decide on which place you want to play on with all of your friends together, because I play on a European server. So, yeah, I just thank goodness an MMO recognizes that's necessary, that's part of interacting and part of, a community sort of based game, even though Tor doesn't really care. If you want to go off and be a single player, you can do it. Just pay your $15 a month, whatever.
I like that the things they took, they didn't do it lazily or stupidly. Like you had mentioned Eve. In Eve, in order to access new skills and new ships and new things to enjoy the game, you had to sit there and wait for stuff. Like you had to train skills, and that took time.
Yeah.
In this, the stuff you're waiting for, sure, it may take like 5 days or whatever max level stuff is for your trade skills, your crew skills, I guess they're called, but that doesn't affect your gameplay at all. There's nothing in the game that it slows down. And I think that kind of stealing I'm totally okay with. Like if they had taken something and it was a blatant ripoff, but it didn't do anything of value, it like slowed down the game or hurt the game in some way, then I'd probably complain about it. Like, oh, they stole this and it's so stupid. But everything they took essentially makes the game better, smoother, and keeps you playing at whatever speed you want to play at. And I'm completely behind this game. I think so far so good. Like I said before, who knows what will happen at 50? We could do another one of these and be like, I hate this game. I love it.
And I think the most important thing to realize is that it's not sort of being dazzled by the newness. You can look at the mechanics and you can see that it is noticeably better. And a lot of the mechanics still tie into the core BioWare value of telling a story. The companions are not pets. You might think they act like pets in the fact that you can set their stances, you can make them do attacks and stuff like that, and they'll go fetch stuff for you. But you're still going to have companion quests, and your companions are still going to have dialogue lines when you are talking to people. And what you say to those people is going to have an effect on your companions. It's purely mechanical in the sense that if you say something bad, they lose an affection point, like 1. I've never seen... Have you ever had a companion lose more than 1 affection point?
150.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you take that scientist back to develop that cure or whatever, if you let him go after he develops a cure for you, then my companion lost 150
Holy hell.
respect, because he doesn't like you showing any signs of weakness whatsoever. So yeah, but I mean, it's not something that you can't gain back with companion gifts. If
Morgan
you know what
disapproves.
they like. Yeah, it's no big deal.
Yeah, you can actually fix that. Fixing it with companion gifts is actually ridiculously easy. And the affection rating you'll be familiar with that from pretty much any BioWare game. And it is pretty easy to fix. I think that a lot of the choices, they have to at least give you an indication that what you're saying has been disapproved of, even if it's a token amount. Losing 1 affection point is pretty much irrelevant, because a reasonably good dialogue choice will give you 15. A really good one, then there are elements where you can do that, will give you 40. And I imagine there's probably ones where you get a massive boost as well. And then, of course, you've got the companion quests, and a companion's basically going to say, well, I want to talk to you, and you can either do it in a cantina, or if it's really important, on the ship only in private. And it's either just listen to them and do some dialogue choices, or actually go and do some quests for them in the same way that you saw companion quests in Mass Effect and things like that. And they do just try and tie it all back into story and personality. Even if it's just, if you look down at the raw mechanics, you see, well, companions are here for this reason and this reason.
Yeah, but every class having either a healer, a tank, switching out which one you want to accompany gives you so much dynamics.
Yeah. I was looking at the list, actually, on Darth Hater, and as far as I can tell, each class has 7 companions minimum, like, of all of the companions available. Some have 9, I think. And I think some of them you can't get, as far as I can tell. Like, you can, if you make certain decisions, you're not going to get that guy, which is kind of cool. But they do give you choices for what you want your companions to do. And even my companion, she can either be in healing mode, where she gets a buff to healing, or she can be in blaster mode. So I can use her for either.
Well, Kem doesn't do anything. He just stands there and whacks people. That's pretty much it.
He's a tank. He's awesome. He taunts, he protects
Having
me.
a tank is pretty useless when you're an assassin and one of your trees is a tanking tree.
It's a tanking tree, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind
I
of pointless
suppose
to have that.
Yeah,
well,
that might be...
it makes perfect sense. It's like playing a warlock, basically. It's like here minion, except he's a very large minion who beats stuff. So for me, I think it's a perfect thing. But I understand that for you, it's probably just like playing co-op in a way with your companion.
It sounds like they maybe could have done with giving you a choice of companion initially. Maybe somewhere in the Origin World story, you choose between one guy or another. And it depends on what you really want. If you know that you're going to be... for instance, if I had a tank, I went power tech. So if I had a tank, I'd be like, what the hell's the point? And when I get my tanking character, he's probably not going to get used. It's as simple as that. Because I'm power tech, I do the tanking. I don't need a tank. But my first character was either a healer or a ranged damage dealer. And both are fine.
And I think that's one of the problems they had with an Inquisitor. I don't know if the Consular has this problem, but to make a class where you are either a melee tank, a melee like a rogue character, or a mage and healer, and that's one class, can be all essentially the holy trinity of MMOs in one class. To give you a first companion that is just a tank, I guess he does DPS. You can make him just a DPS character, but to be a heavy DPS rogue, I will go in, I'll stun a dude, and then I'll go around to kill another guy. Ken will run in, AoE the whole area. I'm like, why would you do that? So I can turn that AoE ability off, but then he'll do his AoE taunt. And then everyone will... It's insane. So I can't wait till I get a character who can do something useful. But the problem is, if you were to go tank, you don't get a healer until like your fourth companion as an Inquisitor.
Really?
So if you want to tank, you're screwed. And I think that's if we're starting to get into problems, that's my number one problem. As someone playing an Inquisitor, we kind of got screwed on the companion front. He's cool, but he's kind of useless.
I get a Jawa.
I hate you so much.
And he's called Blizz. I can abuse the hell out of him, and he's called Blizz. You know how cathartic this is gonna be?
But he's so cute because he's like that is come on. Have you heard the Jawas in this game? How can you be mean to them?
Oh, I will be
awesome.
mean to my Jawa. I will treat it mean to keep it keen.
Wow.
It's a fact, bros. It is a fact. But, well, let's get on to problems then. I can't believe we've already actually talked for over an hour on this. We could turn this into a podcast series. That does not mean we're going to do it, guys, so don't you even think about asking. But we will probably do more than one of these episodes.
They're already posts. It's already happened.
Yeah, it's already happened. God damn it. Anyway, you have got furthest in the game thus far. You are the highest level, and there are some problems that I think we all want to talk about, in fact. So why don't you start off? Let's talk about what is wrong with this game, because it's not perfect.
Okay. First, PvP. I'll just go down my list in my brain here. PvP is essentially the exact same thing as in WoW. I mean, they fancied it up. They made it look different, but it's the exact same format.
Yes, it is. Yeah, no doubt.
There's the AB one. There's the Warsong Gulch one, except you can toss the flag, right? There's and then there's whatever the one is where you have to break down the walls when you storm the beach.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
ruins of something ruins. I can't remember the name of it. It was that bad. Although
but it's that one. So the problems you experience in WoW PvP, being in a pug battleground group, or I guess these are ops, is the exact same.
Definitely.
Pugs are horrible. When you play PvP and you're not with members of your guild or friends, it's the exact same problems you experience in WoW, where it's if the objective is to defend the wall or break in the wall, why the hell are there people fighting in the middle of the battlefield? Defend the freaking wall, you idiot. Like, it doesn't matter if you get your kills. That's not going to help us win. but whatever. Apparently people love doing that. The problem is that I'm on a server, and this just amplifies why I PvP is giving me a hard time. I will say this: positives, you get a ton of experience. You get experience, money, you get tokens that you can use to buy stuff, and then you get valor. I'm not sure what valor is used for, but you get 4 things, and you don't just get a little bit. Like if you go, it scales to you. So if you go into PvP and you do 1 match and you win, you'll come out with like 14,000 experience.
Yeah.
Which at level 26 is like 2 bars.
Yeah, and there's the daily quests as well, so you can stack
so there's
that
another
up.
13,000.
Yeah, with another bunch of that, and yeah, you're right. You get a lot from it, and from a balance perspective, I have to imagine that could be a problem. Because tell us a little bit about what you were saying earlier about not so much running out of things to do, but running too far ahead of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, right now I am, and this goes back to what I was trying to get at before. Is right now I'm level 29. I just hit 29, and I've done a lot of PvP and space combat, which I love space combat, even though it's essentially Star Fox 64. But I am doing a lot of that, and it gives you a ton of experience. But story-wise, I'm only on Nar Shaddaa. There are people who level 29 who are on Alderaan, and that's 2 planets ahead. And so the way the game works is, at the start, it sends you from planet to planet to planet to planet, and not until later do you have choice of where to go. So you go, as a Sith Inquisitor, you go Korriban, Dromund Kaas, Balmorra, Nar Shaddaa, Tatooine. Like, that's your order. And then Alderaan after that. That's your order of operations. Well, I'm level 29. The guys I'm killing story-wise, because I'm still stuck in my story mode, are level 21. And I'm getting no experience. The items I get they're useful, but all I'm taking now is mostly commendations.
Yeah,
because
they're good.
The stuff I'm getting it's pointless. But I have to do this storyline quest in order to move on to the next planet, and I'm getting nothing for it. So last night, for example, I did maybe 7 or 8 quests, and then just got tired of questing and not getting anything worth my time, and went back to PvP. And then I went from 28 to 29 in PvP. Yeah. I was like, this is awesome. Then I realized, like, I got to stop this.
Yeah, because it's going to get worse and worse, isn't it? And
yeah, I was like, I have to stop.
Yeah, and the game will allow you to catch up, because by having no experience, we mean it gives you 5 experience for completing the quest. Like, that is nothing.
It's ridiculous.
Nothing. And you will get something useful in terms of commendations, because commendations can be traded in for a lot of different things, and pretty much every planet has a set of vendors and has a different kind of commendation. And you can either choose to take an item from the end of a quest, or a commendation, which is a token that can be traded in with other tokens in order to gain stuff. And for instance, on Dromund Kaas, the one that I was looking for mods primarily. I got pretty much the best weapon I can get at this stage, and I got that, and then I bought the best mods I could for all of my moddable gear. And I spent a lot of commendations on that. But I could actually see what you've just mentioned being a colossal problem, because
it is.
Yeah, because the story's important, but it's not just the story. If he's like, let's follow the story, but then the combat is absurdly boring because you just slaughter everything, or the fact that you get no drops at all, and RPGs are also about getting loot, then that takes away a lot from the experience.
Right, and that's the problem. That's why I got like 6 or 7 missions in and was like, I'm done with this for the night, because I got nothing from it, and it was just going from point A to point B to point C, and talking. Most of my night was spent in conversations, because it would say go kill this guy, and I'd one-shot him and move on. And I was like, I'm not getting anything from this. I just spent the last 2 hours my bar has not increased at all, and I was like, I'm giving up. I'm gonna go back in PvP. But then the inherent problem with PvP is, and I don't know if this is on all servers, and I don't know how much you guys have PvP'd.
I have a bit, yeah.
When it comes down to my server, we have more Republic people on my server than we do Empire, yet for some reason, none of them queue for PvP. None of them. And so what happens is...
They're a bunch of pansies, basically.
True story, true facts. But what happens is there are 3 PvP choices. There's Alderaan, which is the Arathi Basin quest thing. There's whatever the ship one is, where you have to open the gates.
Yep.
And then there's Huttball. The problem is that the first 2 I mentioned are essentially Republic versus the Empire.
Yes.
Huttball is randomized teams.
Yep.
So 99% of the time, because so few people are playing on Republic, playing PvP, 99% of the time I get Hutball, and 99% of the time it's me versus people in my own guild. And if there's one thing that causes guild disharmony, it's when I'm screaming in TeamSpeak like, "Kill him!" Like freaking out, like that guy's out of the guild. Someone boot him. I don't mean it, but you get so mad because you're fighting each other, and you see one Republic guy in there, and you're wondering like, where are the rest of your friends? Like, what is going on here? And it's not because I know some people are like, well, maybe you're only 29, they're all 50. No, the game scales
exactly.
PvP.
There are no brackets.
Yeah, if I'm in PvP, I'm playing with whoever is in that game with me. So there could be level 50s, there could be level 29s. And the way they did it is they set it up so you scale to, like, if someone's 50, I think this is how it works. I don't know if they send it to the highest or lowest, but if someone's 50, everyone's stuff is buffed to that level.
Yeah, it's a stats buff. You don't get the skills, but the skills that you currently have are buffed up to the level they would be if you were fully trained at that level.
Right, and then that, again, is another problem with the game that I have is I could be level 29 and have my abilities, but going up against someone who's 50 who has all of his tree maxed out, even though I stand a chance, the fact that this, like the other day I was going up against the bounty hunter, he had 4 different stuns and a thing that ensnared me. And I have one way to get out of that.
Yeah.
And basically he just beat the crap. There was nothing I could do. And I was like, well, I did a lot of damage to him, and I'm 29 and he's 50, so I guess it's kind of balanced. But because he had so many other abilities, there was no way I could beat him.
Yeah.
And that I think is a problem.
I mean, the thing is, it was a problem in WoW as well, even in bracket play. Because let's talk about, say, a level 21 versus a level 29. The 29 is going to destroy him. And more to the point, the 29 is probably twinked, which makes it even worse. And there is no stats balancing in that game as well. So it's the same problem, but different, I suppose, in that this guy is going to beat you because he's got more tricks in his toolbox. As you said, he's got a maxed out talent tree, which means he has more abilities than you do. It means his abilities probably proc other abilities. It means that he's still going to take less damage. It doesn't matter if your stats or whatever. I've got something in the advanced prototype tree, which just is a flat percentage damage reduction. That is not counted in the bolster stats at all. So I'm still taking less damage than you. It doesn't matter. And obviously that is magnified at the maximum level. But is there even a way to fix that, though? I mean, is this the best solution? Is it as bad as bracket play? I actually don't know.
I think it's one of those like middle ground stopgap things where they basically said, what's the best solution we have here? We're never gonna find something perfect. So what's the best of the worst? And I think that's what they gave us. It's still annoying, but it's not game breaking. Like, you can still, if I go back, I can still take that guy out. Like, if he kills me and I respawn, I can hunt him down and kill him. And because he'll have used his abilities and has him on cooldown and stuff. Like, that can happen. But it's that initial combat where you go in expecting it to be fair and even, and you come out like, how did I just get my ass handed?
What the hell just happened?
Yeah. It's that kind of like initial shock. You're like, come on now.
I got into a lot of PvP a few days ago. I spent a lot of time playing PvP. I probably spent about 4 or 5 hours just doing PvP. And it's mostly for recording and things like that. And I had guys, I was going up against like level 30s at that point. And there were times when I went in and he unleashed hell on me, and I melted so fast. I'm like, how could that happen? I've got a stats bolster, and then I realized, oh yeah, he actually has tricks that I don't have. And honestly, though, I mean, I get over it quite easily. I still can go top of the damage tree and top of the scoreboard as the lowest level guy in there. And that might have something to do with the fact that you've mentioned this before, that, and some people believe this, a bounty hunter is OP when it comes to dealing damage. My argument being that
totally OP. Bounty hunters are consistently in the top 5.
They've got the best AoE by far, the best and most reliable area of effect. So of course they're the highest.
Is that death from above? Because that looks amazing.
Death from above is very dangerous. The amount of hell, you can use that in PvE as single target because the DPS it deals is very, very high. It is on a 1 minute cooldown, admittedly, but AoE wise, we've got explosive dart. We've got Flamethrower, which is very good as well, I might add, and we have Death from Above. And Explosive Dart is on a short cooldown, Flamethrower is on a short cooldown. Our damage is ridiculously high in AoE, and yeah, we're top of the damage board as a result of that. Well, of course we're going to do more damage than a single target dude. That happens in I don't know. I think you're probably right. It happens less in, say, World of Warcraft. AoE is less important in PvP, I feel. Single target damage, much, much more so. Although I have a feeling that maybe that's just the metagame right now, because people don't know how to play PvP at a high level, because there is no PvP at a high level yet, that it's probably going to shift back in the direction of picking specific targets and knowing who the biggest threat is as people learn the game more, and AoE is going to become less and less important.
Well, the things they have, though, the battlegrounds they have so far, or the operations they have, are get to a door, blow the door open. And everyone's crowding on 2 door points, so that's a lot of AoE
it's
damage.
wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
I mean, people have seen it.
Flag.
The video I had 48 too. I had 48 kills, 2 deaths with an unbeatable streak. And
I'm telling you, it's
it was
insane.
on Voidstar.
So almost every, and then Hutball is everyone crowding around the ball carrier. And so if you're on defense, all you do is crowd around those people and AoE them.
Yeah.
So right now, there's a lot of options for AoE. And I think maybe as people get up higher and start finding different trinkets and items, because there are items in the game that I've seen when you use like your PvP commendations that give you, stun breaks and things like that.
Yeah.
So I assume at level 50 things will change. And that's why, again, I've said I can't get my final verdict on this game.
Well,
I'm impressed now, but
yeah.
There's no way you can say this is a good game or not until you hit 50 and have done it for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, our experience thus far has been good, but if you're talking about the entire experience, no one is going to know whether or not this is a really good MMO for months, because they're not going to have experienced the content. And as you've said, a lot of people, and I've been the biggest proponent of this for years, that the game only begins at endgame. And I don't know, this game is kind of pushing me in the other direction, because the story is that good, but it's still correct. That story is going to end, and then that character you have put a lot of effort into, you're going to be trying to figure out what to do with them. And that's going to certainly matter an awful lot. I know I'm probably not going to be there before they put this next bit of content in, if they put it in on this timeline that they're hinting at. But still, the end game is going to matter an awful lot, and we don't really know a lot about it yet.
The end game is, I guess I don't know. As much as I love WoW, I think I'm a little jaded by it because of all the promises that they've made. Like every BlizzCon, I get so hyped for what's coming down the pipeline. Mm-hmm. I remember Path of the Titans. I was like, yes, finally. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Never appeared. So when I hear stuff like the legendary system,
the legacy system,
in the game,
yeah.
Legacy, thank you. The legacy system, or we're gonna come out with this and this and this and this. To me, all I hear is hype. And I want it to be true, and I hope that it is. But right now, I'm just like, you know what? I'm okay with the game you gave me. It's pretty great. Don't make promises you can't keep, because I don't want to have to come back and be like, I hate you guys for this. Like, I've been doing the exact same dungeon for the last 6 months. Give me something new.
It's like, how many times can you kill the Lich King? It's kind of tired now.
and that's a weird... Here's another complaint I have, since we're like killing Lich Kings and dungeons and whatnot. The dungeons they have in the game, these flashpoints, except for the first one, which is stellar. The Black Talon operation,
so good. Yeah,
is amazing. The design on that's great. After that one, except for one later on, which I will not spoil at all, because as we said before, it's like this is like KOTOR 3, so I'm not going to spoil that. But later on, there's an amazing one. But everything in between, Hammer Station, Aethys, Mandalorian Raiders, I think is the name of it. The Kimi Doodoo, whatever. The Kimi Doodoo. I swear to God, there's one that's called like Kimi Dimu. Essentially, Hammer Station is you have a cutscene with Darth Malgus at the beginning, who's like, "Go do this," and then you go off, and it's basically like running a WoW dungeon. Same with the Mandalorian Raiders, Aethys, except in these, 99% of the mobs are humanoid, and they are just, I don't know, the questing stuff, it's fine to go, kill people and do stuff because it's part of the story. But this, they send you to, there's one where they send you to an ancient, Aethys sends you to an ancient Sith Lord's, like, evil lair, and he's been experimenting and stuff. But when you get there, half the guys are mad, insane Republic soldiers who went there before you, and you have to kill them. The other half are like his shamanistic people that are inside the thing, and they basically look like, everyone else in the game. And then the last, there's maybe one boss that's a giant version of another monster you fought like 12 times up till now. And then the last boss is just a Sith guy who's possessed. There's no, like, okay, this is great. Thanks for the loot. But when you leave, you're like, that was the most uninspired. Like it's weird because you have Black Talon, which is stellar, and then you have this one at the end, which is like beyond amazing, spoilery amazing. But everything in between is it's just like, okay, whatever. And I think it's because you don't have to do them, which makes it sad to me. Like as someone who likes running dungeons, it's kind of sad. You don't even have to go to them. You get the quest by boarding the Imperial fleet. You get on the fleet and like an R2 unit's like bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah.
And then it's like, go meet Darth Malgus. And Darth Malgus will be like, yeah, go, there's this place, I need to go kill some guys. That's your storyline for it. Other than that, there is none.
That's really disappointing to hear, actually, because Black Talon was, it was easy, don't get me wrong, and that's kind of our fault because we out-leveled it quite a bit when we did it, and that's just a 2-man dungeon. That's what it's designed for. But the Black Talon was kind of a revelation to me because it's like, this is a story-driven instance where I have to make some choices, and those choices are going to affect the instance. Like the fact that the first major choice you make, the next 20 minutes of that dungeon are entirely dependent on what you just chose. You go to an entirely different area. You fight entirely different dudes in an entirely different place. And even when you then get back, there's another thing that happens as a result. Something has occurred because you decided to make that decision. Are you telling me that Hammer Station doesn't have any decisions like that?
No, the only decision in Hammer Station is at one point you access a computer after you beat a boss, and there's a droid in a room, and you have a light side choice to use the droid to kill everyone in the room, or dark side choice to do that, or a light side choice to power everything down. That's the only choice you make in that entire dungeon. For Mandalorian, I'm trying to think of, you board like this ship that this rebel faction of Mandalorian warriors is on. Your one choice is there's a room filled with guys. You can either lock them in the room or eject them all into space. It looks cool, admittedly, to eject them all into space, but that's your only choice in the entire thing. And it's kind of like, well, you started out so good. These 5 in the middle, these 5 like from level like 16, I think it is 14 to 30 something. The 5 dungeons they give you are kind of lame. And once you do them once, unless there's something you really want from there, but of course we don't know what drops from these things. It's all random at this point. Unless I guess there are a few sites out there trying to collect the data, but yeah. When it comes down to it, there's no reason to go there. And you can go from planet to planet questing, doing the heroic 4-mans, 2-mans that are in the world, that are open world stuff, without even having to set foot in these. And I got to level 21 before I even did Hammer Station or Aethys, which are, I think, 14 and 18, 16, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Something like that. Didn't even bother going there. And then when I went there, I was like, well, good thing I didn't take this too seriously, because these are really, again, that's another problem I have, is they sold the first dungeon so well that the next 4 are kind of a letdown.
That's disappointing.
It kind of reminds me of, if you played Alliance side, Dead Mines versus everything after that for the next 20 or so levels.
Pretty much, yeah. It's they oversold the first one, which I think, being on Horde when your first dungeon is like, go under Orgrimmar and kill some dudes in the fire, like that's not like a good bar for you. Like, oh, yeah, everything's gonna be better than this. And that's kind of, yeah, that took me by surprise, because I expected, when you meet Darth Malgus, he says essentially, go to Hammer Station. There are these guys, they've taken over this massive battle station that shoots freaking asteroids. Yeah. Right? And he's like, there are 10,000 Advosec hegemony warriors there. I was like, we are not gonna have to kill 10,000 dudes. This is gonna be awesome. You get there, and it's like, you go around all the combat. Aww. You have to fight, and then you get access to this giant like meteor station, and the option is destroy the station or, shut it down. Where's my option to use it on Republic planets? Where is that? Like, I would do that in a heartbeat. And I don't know. The game is kind of like, well, this is mid-game stuff, and we want you to focus more on the story, which might be a downside as you look more towards level 50 when they focus so heavily on the story. Because I know this for a fact, at level 50, you'll probably still be in chapter 3. Because the game, for those who don't know, you can be level 25 and just finishing up the prologue. I'm 29, I'm still in chapter 1. And so I think
the
chapter
6
3,
chapters, right?
Yeah, there are 5 or 6, something like that, yeah. And so you'll be max level at 50. Or, wait, you'll be in chapter 3 at max
Well
level.
done. Well done.
Yes.
You'll be max level at the level cap. This is a brand new innovation in this game.
But you hit, I'm afraid that you'll hit that max level. You'll still have 2 chapters left of your story, and that's what they'll want you to focus on, rather than doing anything raid-based or big, dungeon crawling.
Exactly what they want you to do, honestly.
And I think that's going to alienate a lot of, I know a lot of people who, one of my friends, Sven, name drop, he is really heavy. I think if you go, look him up on those WoW things that give you, the best WoW players in the world, he joined, he basically sold everyone out and joined one of those really good WoW guilds. He's, one of the top healers in the world. He's amazing. And he is a big dungeon runner. He loves that stuff. Luckily, he's enthralled by the story. He doesn't know anything about Star Wars lore, but he loves the story. And so that has him entertained. But I am worried players like him, because I know there are a lot. There are a lot of people in this game, because I see a lot of 50s running around, that when they hit that max level, and they hit that cap, the story isn't going to be enough for them. And they're going to want... I am worried, based on the dungeons I've run, that Star Wars, I don't know. I don't know if it will deliver. That's why I'm very cynical. I'm slowly becoming you, I think, about what is in store. Again, right now the game is stellar and amazing. It's that level 50 thing that has me worried. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a concern. You know what? If it ends up being that, I'll actually be okay with unsubbing, and I'll probably been happy with my experience. And I'll just say, you know what? That was KOTOR 3. I'm done. Wrapped it up. If something really cool happens in the next 6 months to a year, I'll subscribe again. But I think that I would have never done that with any other game, like with World of Warcraft, for instance. I wouldn't have got to max level and said, that was a satisfying experience. Done now. I quit WoW 7 times before max level. That was 60 at the time, That's how many times I quit and actually just said, I am sick to death of this grind.
The leveling in WoW is... Yeah.
Yeah, that's a stellar point, because I can honestly agree with you. I have a lot of problems with this game, but I can walk away. If I quit, I could walk away and say, I had a wonderful, compelling experience. Like with Rift, I quit Rift, and it was because I hit 50 and was like, oh, God, whatever, right? It was fun playing with friends, but when you looked at its base core, Rift wasn't all that entertaining. This game, you can go into it, you can play by yourself, get something out of it, and quit, just like any other game you would that was single player, and you can walk away and be like, that was fun. I agree. I think you're absolutely right.
I mean, you actually get something kind of in the end, though. It is fulfillment. If it is KOTOR 3, then you know what? Let it be that. Single player story, done. Whatever. Move on. I'm sure, and I hope you two can agree that, the money I paid for the game has already well served itself in the amount of hours that I put into it already.
Yeah, agreed.
By far. So... yeah, I would be completely fine with walking away from it, once the story elements are done. I'm hoping that there will be something for in-game. I hope that it's amazing and awesome. But I think that's the one thing that hopefully it will deliver, whereas WoW kind of has failed there. In WoW, you couldn't really ever technically beat the game unless you were raiding and you got that ending cutscene and that whole sense of fulfillment. Oh, we beat the game, guys.
Even then, you went on farm status.
Right. It's like, okay, well, we're coming back next week to get more gear for the main tank. And you're like, wait, what? No, we beat the game. I'm going to go and...
I'm on subbing now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I have so many other games I could be playing. But yeah, so I'm perfectly fine with leaving TOR behind if in-game is not amazing. But I'm hoping it is.
Well, I think obviously they don't want you to leave it behind. I think there was some quote a while ago that said, well, as long as we had a certain number of people sub for like this number of months, then we'd be okay. Like financially, we'd have pretty much paid things back. Obviously, that's quite a lot of people that would have needed to have actually subbed, because they spent a lot of money on this game. And it is in their best interest to make a compelling in-game experience. But yeah, you're right. I think that in this game, and this is going to sound incredibly cheesy, the journey actually matters more so than any other MMO. And yeah, I can... don't even start with me. People are going to claim that I've gone soft. in, say, WoW, I can remember a number of things as I was leveling, and there were definitely events that are memorable to me, and I value those events, but they were few and far between. And in even the last couple of weeks, I've had more memorable events in this game than I have in any other MMO, simply because the game actually provided those moments for me in the sense of the story. I can quote lines that I love from the game. I can remember quests that were awesome, choices that were awesome. I know my entire character's backstory up to this point because the game continually reminds me of what it is. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and every stage that I've gone through this, I know what my end goal is, and it's not max level. My end goal is to be the greatest goddamn bounty hunter in the galaxy, and this is how I'm going to do it. It is not to hit 60. And that is the biggest difference for me, because no other MMO has done that for me, ever. And that's just such a revelation to me, in the sense that this is the kind of enjoyment I usually get out of a single-player BioWare title. And yeah, I'm getting it here, even if I have to deal with something of the clunk and the very gamey elements that are kind of immersion breaking. Even if I have to deal with that, I'm okay with that.
Right. Exactly. And that's the story. I think that's why we talked about it first.
Exactly, because it's the most important thing.
If I remember back like 12 hours ago when we started this. I think the story is the key to this entire thing. And it doesn't matter. I know someone's going to be like, well, you guys you're only level 21, 20. You don't know. But
we'll freely admit we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't make any final judgment calls till the end game. But the stuff we've experienced is so much better than anything I've experienced so far in any other MMO that I played. Like,
completely agree.
Yeah.
I think the difference between this and, say, up to this point, Final Fantasy XI had the best story in MMO I've ever played. Like, it really sucked you in, and it developed this world. But this one, the reason why you get sucked in so early is because you're making all the choices. You are this character, and so, for example, my guy. By the way, I solely chose my character, the class, based on his voice. That was the only, because it is amazing how much of a pompous ass he is. He has this, he has that like the Empire British accent.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Mine has that too.
Male
of
Imperial agent is awesome in that respect. Although that's what I played in beta, and his accent was amazing. But I picked a female bounty hunter deliberately because that voice actress is one of the main voice actresses from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. She played the Vorman sisters, both of them. The one that everyone has seen from Vampire, because it was on marketing everywhere. The vampire in the schoolgirl outfit with the crop top, that's her. That's her voice. And yet you get to play that for 300, 400 hours and be a violent, psychopathic, but also very sarcastic git with her. And that's great.
And that's the key.
I'm wondering why I'm still married to this man.
He's right. The sarcasm is the best part.
The sarcasm is the best part, but I'm just saying, he has to go through the whole graphic detail of what she looks like and all this other. Yeah.
You know what? He's still a guy.
Setting the scene.
I'm on his side on this one. I'm on his side.
You're outnumbered.
Vampire thing,
you have a wingman.
Damn right.
Wow.
Representing bro Seth, bro Sidon that I've got right here.
Interweb fist bump.
Indeed.
My character will say, I'll get a quest, and this guy will be pleading with me to save him. And my response, he'll literally go, yawn. Like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Like, the fact that your character can be like, I just don't care what you're saying. That is the last 7 years of WoW. When a guy's like, look, I need to go find my mother-in-law who got lost in the wilderness. It's like, dude, I just don't care. Give me the experience. And the fact that your character is like, this is boring. That to me, it makes if you're playing a bad guy, that makes it all the better, because there's no fun being a bad guy who's just evil. You got to be an ass about it too, especially if you have unlimited power.
Yeah,
and my character doesn't even see that as dark side choices or anything. My character is an absolute mean girl. She is very, very mean and very arrogant, talks down to everyone, because that's the companion choice that I have to make in order for my companion to love me.
Wow, that's kind of sad, isn't it? It's like I need validation from my genetically engineered That's not even a thing. That thing that you have, it's not a thing. It's a big hulk of tank. That's what it is. A man tank.
I don't want to sound like a shrink, but I wonder if there isn't some transference between her companion and you. Maybe?
Well, I mean, when you look at validation, though, it's also important to look at the egocentric, portion of choosing, a Sith Inquisitor. I mean, you get to be called Lord every day.
Actually, the first 20 levels they call you slave. They're like, "What's going on, slave?" It's like, damn.
But then eventually it's like Lord, even though you're not a Lord, you're not even a Darth. You're not a Darth, you're not a Lord, you're an apprentice, but they don't call you that. It's just my Lord.
Well, they have to. That's the society that it is. Especially apparently if you pick pure Sith as your race choice, that will also affect things as well. You go pure Sith Inquisitor, oh yeah, people are gonna be respecting and fearing the crap out of you. But on the other side, which I've mentioned earlier, but I want to reiterate it, I am an alien bounty hunter. I am not considered to be particularly high up the ranks. People are scared of me, but they also absolutely hate me, and the Imperials, who know that I can't touch them, will go out of their way to call me alien scum. No problem at all. And then I'll have a sarcastic response that will make them call me alien scum even more. They know that they can't kill me either, but they will threaten the hell out of me, they will belittle me, and that's really kind of cool because I start to feel like I hate you, and yeah, I'm going to help you because it's in my best interest to, but I'm not going to like it, and I'm going to make it clear to you that I don't like it. And you know what? That's cathartic, because in WoW, I couldn't tell that NPC, you are a fucking idiot. I couldn't say that. It wouldn't let me. I had to accept everything I was given as a messenger boy. And here I can just tell you, screw you. And I can even tell you screw you in such a way that it will just reject the quest. That's wonderful.
Right, yeah.
And then you can take the quest up later on just in case you need some extra funds.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that a lot of completionists are going to be saying, oh, I've got to take every extra quest. But I think as you just you pointed this out a while ago. I say just pointed out. Yeah, in the last 4 hours of this discussion or whatever, you pointed out that, no, actually, you could skip a hell of a lot of the side stuff because you're going to catch up XP anyway. And in fact, you might end up doing a bit too much. So don't worry about missing out on something that sounds like it sucks. Because maybe it does, and you don't really have to worry about it.
You were talking about races. And this may be a nitpick of mine, but I think this is a problem that I have with the game. I'm filled with complaints today. When it comes to races, I think they blew it when it comes to choices. There's so many different species in the Star Wars universe, and even in the game. I've come across countless dozens of different races.
Loads,
and when you are in your character select screen, I think, and I've complained about this before, the idea that a cyborg is a different race or species is insane to me.
Yeah.
Because when you get to them, it's the exact same thing as a human, except they have like things on their face.
Yeah.
There's no like, why would you? I think it's like they lazied their way out of that one. Like, well, we need another choice for people.
Everyone's the same size. On that thing. That's the thing I think you have to look at the most, is that they picked races that are all about the same size. In WoW, you have gnomes. You cannot play a Bothan in this game. You can't play a Bothan, you can't play a Jawa, you can't play an Ewok or any other nonsense. You can't even play a Wookiee. You know?
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of
humanoid guys.
I have a problem with that. I think they tried to make up for it with the companions, because you have companions of every shape and form.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
Very few times are they actually human. Like we were talking earlier, you get a Jawa. I mean, I hate you for that, but you get a freaking Jawa who carries a rocket launcher,
which is so awesome.
Amazing. So I think they did a lot of work with that to like balance it, but for some reason, that initial choice of you have a human or a cyborg, which is a human with like robot eye patches, there's no difference at all, and the choices in the creation of it aren't that different. And that kind of seemed like you had so many freaking races to choose from and species, and this is what you went with. I'm like, that should be part of anything. Like, do you want to have cyborg implants on your Sith character? Sure, you can do that.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know. That seemed like a little clunky to me. But again, that's a nitpick. That's
The stupid
Since
thing
I'm
is
on
that
it,
implants are actually an equipment slot that everyone can use. So the whole thing is kind of dumb in that respect. And I do like the fact that they recognize your race in the game. That's fine. But you're right. They really did pick the laziest they could. And most MMOs do races better. There's no benefit as well to picking a race. The racials are social abilities. Like, I can make somebody cheer. I can inspire loyalty as whatever the hell race I pick, the Darth Maul style race. That's it. There is no stat difference. It is all story difference, and I'm okay with it being story difference, and I like the fact that it's there. But you're right, they phoned it in with the races completely.
Yeah. I mean, they picked ones that... They picked human, of course, and then they picked ones that were humanoid looking and that were sort of popular. So you had the pure blood Sith because you can't have the Sith return without them. Mm-hmm. And then they did the Darth Maul guys because the Darth Maul guys are popular now. And then they did a bunch of other of the different Jedi style characters because of the recent movies. And then I honestly don't know why they picked the Chiss or the I'm trying to think of what the Republic guys have who have the no eyes, but are essentially humans with no eyes.
Well, they're from the books. I know why they did that. They're
from the books.
Yeah, it's expanded universe crap. The Chiss is because of...
Grand Admiral Thrawn was a
exactly,
badass.
Thrawn. That's the sole reason they put the Chiss in there. It's to appeal to the expanded universe dudes. And the Jedi ones, the Midaluka or whatever they are, I can't remember their proper names, I don't actually care either. She was in... Was it either KOTOR 1 or KOTOR 2?
KOTOR 2.
That you could have one of those. That's to appeal to the KOTOR players.
Right, and it makes sense, but again, it's, if you play a Sith character, you get, a pink-skinned person, a pink-skinned human, a red-skinned human, a blue-skinned human, or a guy with tattoos all over his body, or a human with cyborg parts. Like, that's it. There's no real difference.
No, there isn't.
But, yeah, and then when you get into the actual character creation... I think that they could have improved vastly on.
It's better than WoW's.
It's vastly better than WoW.
But WoW, we're dealing with a 7-year-old. The problem I have is that you have games like Rift or Terra or Ion. Their character creation is way out there. For some reason, I don't know why, but I think Eastern games. The Chinese, Japanese, they have that down. They have the rest of the game is garbage. This is the way it always is. The rest of the game is just a grind fest, but character creation is so good. Star Wars needed to steal that. If they were going to steal stuff, they should have stole that too.
Yeah, I think that was fairly low priority for them, honestly. And
right.
I mean, I can certainly understand why. But...
And cut scenes, and you can see that they had a lot. Like when you talk to someone on a holo communicator. Before it fizzles in or out to show their image, it always stretches to the max height of whatever the highest person can be and the max width. So for a brief second, you're talking to this like 7-foot tall fat dude, and then it shrinks down to like, a Jedi woman. So you can tell what they try to do. They try to do the best they could with a storytelling MMO that gives you this many choices. So I'm not going to hate them for it. It's just one of those things like, if I'm nitpicking that too.
Well, yeah, it's a weakness. You can point that out as a weakness and say, hey, if that is very important to you, if the idea of making a character exactly to your liking is important to you, that is going to be something you're not going to enjoy here.
Right. Is that it? Have we talked everything there is to talk about this?
No.
We're only at like, we're not even at level
1
30.
hour 44 minutes. That is something like there's still a few things that I would just like to talk about, and they're kind of smaller things, but it talks a bit about the way that the mechanics work in the game and the way that they blend very gamey mechanics in with a immersion generating story-based game. For instance, the way that instances work and the way that phases work in this game. Now, some people, including the guys that I love dearly over at the Bombcast, pointed this out as a bad thing. They said, it's really gamey because the way that phases work in this game, basically you go to a door, that door's either going to have a green force field. Not all doors are like this. In fact, the minority are. If the door's got a green force field, you can pass through it, and it immediately creates a phase for you. If it's got a red force field, you can't go through that, because that's going to be a class-based phase that you are not entitled to go in. You can go in if you're grouped with someone of that class, but you can't go in otherwise. And you're going to find doors that are just like, nope, can't get in, because this is a Sith Inquisitor area, and stuff like that. And that's been criticized. And you know what? The way that this game does phasing it might not be elegant, but it's certainly way more functional than other games. It works better. It's as simple as that. Think about the way that phasing works in WoW. The idea that, oh, my party members are invisible again, or this NPC isn't here, and that doesn't happen in Tor at all.
Right. The only thing that changes in a phase is stuff that you can go into and do. The outside world doesn't change at all. So your story changes, but like, for example, Balmora, just because you're in the middle of a war, doesn't mean that, you know, as you get further into it, the parts you can go into that are green, those will change, but the overall outside area won't change. I think that's like a happy medium, because WoW, I think, pushed the envelope on that.
They did,
They really tried to make something different and special, and it works when it works.
Yes, it's really good when it works. It really, really is, and that was one of the things that I praised them most for, the way that they actually implemented phasing, because for the longest time we were talking about how WoW was a cardboard scenery that never changed.
Right. And I think they did an excellent job at that. I guess Star Wars saw, again, we said this earlier, you know, back sometime last year when we started this, that it's definitely, they took the things that they saw WoW do and do well, and they stole those. They took the things that WoW sort of did bad on and they altered them. But with this, I think what they did is they saw that phasing is a great idea, but there has to be a middle ground where you don't get stuck in an area where no one in your party can join you. And that's what they did. They took all that and put it together, and I think they did great.
I agree. I remember many countless hours trying to lead people through Icecrown Citadel, trying to find the part of the quest where they had stopped in the middle of phasing, abandoned their quest, and they couldn't join a raid because they couldn't find the right person. And that was like no end of headaches. So I'm glad that it doesn't actually change the world as a whole, but you still feel in the story in Tor that you're impacting in one way or another.
Yeah, I think the way that Tor does it in World of Warcraft, it's like, you are having a direct impact on this world. Here, let me show you how you did it. In Tor, you are having direct impact on yourself. Let me tell you how that's happening and let me act it out. But we're not going to change the world. You know, you're not someone who can change the world. For me, as say, the bounty hunter, at no point has it ever come up in the story thus far that's like, I am part of a greater cause. I don't care. I am out to advance myself as a bounty hunter and become the richest bastard in the galaxy. The galaxy doesn't have to change for me to be able to accomplish that goal. And it doesn't. The game does not change. And if you enter some of the areas that in WoW would certainly be phased, these big sort of battle areas that you gradually would take over and NPCs wouldn't be in one place and then move into another and things like that. And that's going to be the same in Guild Wars as well. Guild Wars is the exact opposite of the way that Tor works. Guild Wars 2 is all public questing, and it's all about push this area to a certain state, and this area's state is going to change for everybody because of your actions. Tor, exact opposite of that. It's not going to change. The stuff that changes is with you and with the people that you talk to. It's more of a personal story than it is a let's change the world kind of thing.
But in that story, though, it's very dramatic. Like I for example, as a Sith Inquisitor, since I've done this one and I love the story. I've played it like 6 times in the beta from like level 1. So essentially, you and your master, you're low-level functionaries in the Dark Council. Like, not until like halfway through is she even put on the... You're nobody. You're her apprentice. But the story is very personal because you find out a lot of like dark secrets, and it'll also find out your master's completely insane, and she has some like evil plan as well. And so it's less of... There's this growing conflict. There is a story arc in the game where a big battle happened. There's a like tenuous peace between the Republic and the Empire, and they're preparing for the next war. And this is that time in between. So there's a greater, larger scale story here that will probably be told at some point. But right now, you're going through your personal story, and they're riveting because the things you discover and the stuff you do isn't... they don't try to make it more than it is. Your story, if you're a bounty hunter, you are dealing with I want to be the richest mofo in the galaxy. If you're an Imperial agent, you're essentially James Bond, and you're spying and you're doing all these missions. If you're a Jedi, you're going around trying to, establish a peace because you've lost so much because the Empire destroyed like half your planets. If you're a smuggler, you're dealing with you lose your ship like right off the bat. So there's all these things that you have to do, and it's very personal stories. It's like everything it's all the B stories in the Star Wars series, like the love between Han and Leia, and Han and Lando, and they lost their, they had a card game or whatever, and he lost his ship, like that kind of stuff. That's what this game is. It's all those little tiny things that take place in the world. Imagine what's that guy's name, Wedge, the guy who lived through every single movie. Yeah. Imagine what he's doing while Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie, they're off saving. Wedge only shows up at the end, right? Like, this is everything Wedge was doing up until the point of that last battle. Like, he had to be up to something. So this is Wedge's still like this is essentially what it is. There's Darth Malgus and Satele Shan and all those, like, those are the main story characters. You're everyone else. You're the guys who show up to the battle at the end, like, let's do this, Han, woo! Right? You're those guys, but you have your own story too, and I think that is pretty creative. And so you work for them and you do stuff for them, but this is your own personal legend, and that's I think they did that very well. You're right, you don't change the world, but you do play a role in it.
Wow, that just like totally applied to real life. Thanks, Jesse.
You're welcome. You're welcome. In a way, I think, aren't we all like Wedge Antilles? I need that on a shirt. Someone said that to me. Aren't we all like Wedge Antilles? They just have a picture of Wedge in his little mask with a thumbs up. That's all I want. That's all I want in this world. So, artists, get on that.
I don't think you realize just how appropriate an analogy that is with Wedge Antilles, because those who have followed the expanded universe know about the X-Wing series being one of the best series of Star Wars books, like beyond a shadow of a doubt. And this feels like, and it is, basically you are playing the expanded universe. The entire thing is you are playing expanded universe. I mean, of course you are. The Old Republic has never been represented in a film. And we're not talking about Phantom Menace. That was like 30 years before the events of New Hope. This is, 4,000? It's about 3,500, because KOTOR was 4,000 years before Phantom Menace, if I recall correctly.
And I think they said this is 200 or 300 after KOTOR 2.
Yes, which was ahead of that
about
as well.
3,500.
Yeah, exactly. So about 3,500 to 3,000 years behind that. This is a purely expanded universe, and your character is important in the sense that an expanded universe character is, i.e. to the main canon, basically doesn't matter. But in this universe, yeah, he kind of does, but not too much. He's not going to be a world changer, because he can't be a world changer. It's an MMO. You can't be a world changer in an MMO, really. And I think WoW probably went the most extreme with that and had some success, but it was very hard to rationalize I killed the Lich King. So did these other 3 million people.
Right. And then especially other characters in the game. Then the next expansion, you're back to Joe Blow. Like, no one cares that you personally killed the Lich King. Nobody cares.
Yeah, it's back to collect 10 bear asses, but this time it's 10 fell bears, or 10 ice bears, or 10 cataclysm bears, death bears, panda bears, by the looks of it, in the next expansion. Collect 10 panda asses. There we go. That's how it's going to be, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not being the guy that saves the universe, because my own personal story is interesting enough, and I actually don't necessarily need a higher purpose, because maybe it's more interesting if I don't.
I want to let you in on, because you mentioned everything that is involved with this story, so I figured I'd share it with the world right now, just to prove how much of a total nerdingstein I am. The other day, in the game, this guy was trolling everyone in a drum and cast chat, which is essentially Baron's chat.
Yeah.
And some guy said, "Hey, bro, how about you meet me on Alderaan in 3,500 years?" And I started cracking up because I understood that joke. And then I stopped and felt really bad because it made me so freaking nerdy, like geek level nerd. Because to any Star Wars fan, you know that in 3,500 years, Alderaan won't be there because it'll be blown up by the Death Star. And so at the time, I thought that was hilarious. But then I realized, holy, you are the nerdiest person on the planet. I was like, that is a hilarious joke. And then I was like, wow, dude, you need to get out more. I was like, step away from the computer. It's not that funny, really. So yeah.
At least your Baron's chat is interesting. I mean,
yes.
on my server, it's all Skyrim jokes, and you all know
Arrow
the
to the
one I'm
knee
talking
crap.
about, and I'm not saying it, and I hate you for saying it.
Well, I was going to avoid that joke, but then I took a blaster bullet to the kneecap. The funny thing is that what you just mentioned about Alderaan, actually one of the characters does lampshade it. And
that's awesome.
I'm pretty sure he said something along the lines of, I'd rather have this planet blown into space debris than give it to the Empire. Well,
nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was said on probably one of the trooper missions or something like that. But we, funnily enough, managed to completely avoid the mechanical discussion I was looking for and went right back to the story again.
That's because this game is so heavy. It's hard not to associate everything in the game with the story. It's kind of, I don't know, it's the Achilles heel of discussion because everything revolves around the story. Even mechanics. Mechanics are I mean, I don't know how much you can say without saying gameplay-wise, it's WoW.
Mm-hmm.
You're pressing the same buttons. You have your little keys all bound and stuff.
Yep.
There's combat. There's no difference. If I'm playing a Sith assassin, I'm playing a rogue.
With the exception of the cover-based classes, because that's something that is not in WoW.
Right, but when it comes down to it, an Imperial agent, sniper, sharpshooter, whatever they're called, is essentially like some type of hunter hybrid, where you're doing range damage, like heavy range damage, except without a pet, even though you do have one as a companion.
Yeah.
So you can really, I think, when I was playing a trooper, if you play a trooper healer, it's pretty much like a shaman. So there's all these different things, but if you can play WoW, you can play this. And so to say like, well, we're going to talk about, gameplay. We've been talking about gameplay in this game for the last 7 years, just, through WoW. There's no difference. If you can play WoW, you can play this. And that's why I think that's one of the reasons people are like, oh, it's just a WoW clone. Because it looks so similar to it. And maybe that's a downside.
But is it a downside?
Attitude. No, I mean of people's attitudes, not the game itself. If anything, it makes it easier to play. I went into this right away and knew exactly how I was playing. There was no, I have to learn to do this and learn. No, once you realize that this ability, even though it's named different, is the exact same thing as something in WoW, you can put two and two together and figure out how to use it. You can build your trees better. Going into this, I will say, like, when I played Rift, building a tree, like finding a spec, I think I spent 3 hours one day staring at like builds, trying to figure out how I was going to make this character because none of it made sense to me. I went into this, I saw what it offered. I knew as an assassin character who's going to do PvP or PvE mostly what I needed. And so I, in my head, worked out my way up the tree and figured out what I would need, saw all the different options, and was like, perfect, easy. Took maybe 20 minutes to figure out how I was going to play this game right off the bat. Like, that to me is a sign that this is an easy game to get into, especially for like hardcore raiders, which yeah. I'm the guy who gets carried by the hardcore raiders, but I'm always in the raid. So I know
people like you. I hate people like you. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't worry, everyone else does too.
Aww.
I have like over 11,000 virgin points in WoW right now. So I got all my titles. Where's your titles? That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should talk about the way that combat is kind of similar, because Jenny, you were telling me about the way that you've spec'd your sorcerer and the fact that you spec'd it, and he's like, you kind of went down the lines of a shadow priest.
Yeah, basically, I'm trying to play it more like a shadow priest instead of going down the lightning tree like what most people are going to do with the sorcerer. Most of them are going to play it like a mage or play it like a warlock since you have your companion / pet. But I'm trying to go more corruption. I think personally the returns that you get health wise, I think eventually for PvE that's probably going to be the better way to go. I think. And this is just speculation, of course, because I haven't, made it to a higher level. But so far from what I'm seeing, considering I have my tanking companion, it's working out pretty well for me. Even if my companion gets killed, which is very rarely, considering I can also heal, which is, something that I really like about this class. Wow, I don't have to get out of a phase in order to heal someone. I can stay in my awesome dark presence. So I just think the benefits eventually of this tree are going to outweigh the straight lightning DPS. But that's just my personal opinion on it. Maybe I'm just too Shadow Priest to actually go the whole pure DPS anymore. Maybe I'm just not that cool.
Well, I think that the way that I've actually spec my bounty hunter, I slipped into being a fire mage again. It helps that the bounty hunter has an entire tree which is called pyro. So fire is fairly high up on the list of priorities for a lot of bounty hunters, especially power tech. They have a lot of fire-based stuff. And yeah, I've got a lot of big AoEs, and I can do some nuking and things like that. But unlike a fire mage, I also have quite a lot of close range stuff. And because power techs are heavily armored, and power techs are... You can do either damage or tanking with a power tech, depending on how you spec it out, really. And there's a suitable amount of, well, this is kind of a bit of this class mixed with a bit of this class that I can get certainly some enjoyment out of it. But the point is that these classes, you are going to see parallels all over the place, without a shadow of a doubt. There is no massive major innovation in the combat aside from the cover system, and even that is... It's a mechanic. It doesn't define the combat. It varies it and puts a few additional variables in it. It doesn't completely change the way the MMO combat works.
It's kind of like a stance, really, when it comes down to it. You have to be in that stance in order to use those abilities. And it just, you have to be covered and stationary in order to do it.
Yeah, it matters quite a lot in PvP.
Right. But at the same time, the PvP options that are available, there's so many platforms and things to get on. I'll be in the middle fighting some guy or trying to sneak around and get shot in the back by some dude who's like 4 platforms up, and I have no way to get to him. So just because you're stationary doesn't mean you can't position yourself, and you get a great deal of range on your abilities if you're a ranged, if you go full ranged class.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, if you're a warrior, for example, you can jump, or Jedi Knight, you can jump up those 3 platforms to get to the guy.
Yeah.
So the balancing they've done so far has been pretty good. I'm pretty impressed. Again, bounty hunters are pretty OP, but overall, I'm impressed.
No. Again, I still don't agree that bounty hunters are necessarily OP. I think that it's just because of the way that the metagame at the moment is favoring AoE classes. That's why it's actually working the way it is.
Paladins would always say they're not OP at the time. And then it was
is,
druids. Druids would always say that, and then rogues would always. So yeah, if you're the class, of course you're not OP.
Yeah, exactly. I need a new icon for my bounty hunter armor. If I can just get that every patch, that would be great. It's pro balancing right there. That's how it works. That's mage balancing in a nutshell. What do we get? We got a new icon for mage armor. All right. Yeah.
The best thing so far, not stopping to have to drink and eat. I'm sorry, but that makes all the world difference for me.
Genius.
That is, seethe for an Inquisitor is like the best thing in the world.
That is the most comedic thing I've ever seen. It's like, how do you recover your health and resources? You brood.
Yeah, it's like, here, let me go emo for a few minutes, and all of a sudden I have all of my health, all of my mana back, which doesn't really work in real life. If you brood, I don't no.
I'm actually kind of mad that, like, because all of them get really cool ones. Like, if you're a Imperial agent, like, you scan through a dossier of, like, different people. If you're a trooper or a bounty hunter, you check all your equipment.
That's awesome, because you actually start floating, because you're checking your boosters, and you fire your flamethrower just to make sure it's still working. Yeah.
But the winner, and this is why I'm so mad, because if I wasn't so in love with the Inquisitor, I would go smuggler. Like, this will probably be my alt. But as a smuggler, you flip a coin and you like shoot it out of the air, or you like check your pockets, and sometimes it randomly does this. Like, you'll hear a noise, like you'll turn to hear a noise, and your hands will be in your pockets, and you'll pull out your hands really quick, and all this money will fall out of your pockets, right? Like all these credits. It's amazing. The little details like that, I love. That you don't sit there and drink like with your hands in this cup that's like the size of your head.
And the bread's in the cup, and it's like, what?
Like, you're sitting there and you do something like, essentially the Inquisitor is 99% it's the Darth Maul move, where like at the end of the first movie, he's like, I'm waiting for you, Obi-Wan, right? Like that thing. Or I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Basically, it took iconic moments or things that define that class and sort of made this is your regen, and it scales with you, so it's not totally useless like racial abilities in WoW, where you got like a regen ability. It's like, why? What is the point of this? It's useless at level 80. So this one, you can use it all the time. I've used it since level 1, and it's saved my butt consistently.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's, to think that you're not going to be a range class responsible for bringing all of the water and all of the biscuits to the raid is just an amazing sense of freedom.
For 6 years, Mage here, thinking, my God, do I appreciate this. And that's not to say that there isn't buff food, because there is. You get like the level-based buff food, peppered bantha steak, and various drinks and things like that. But they work kind of the same way. Well, actually, they don't really work the same way, because the way that they work in DDO is kind of original. But they work in the sense that you eat one of these things and it will buff you, just like food kind of does in WoW. And it doesn't serve the purpose of, hey, let's bring 40 food on my adventures in my backpack. It's not taking up space. That's not going to happen.
And you don't have random people harassing you. It's like you have a regen. Use your regen. You don't have, random people running up to you in chat. Hey, Mr. DPS class, make me some XYH2O.
Actually, I love the fact that all of us have a complete lack of useful utility. Every class. There's no portals plicks. There's no food plicks, waters plicks. Because you're given all of that functionality.
Because droids do it all.
Well, that actually transitions nicely into talk about how travel works in this game. Because travel's kind of odd, and some people, I suppose, won't really get how it works. So, you don't really have a Hearthstone in this game per se. You've got about 50 different kinds of Hearthstone. So, the primary methods of travel are, of course, run around. And quite early on, you get a sprint ability, which means when you're out of combat, you are kind of like, it's like being on half a map. It's like being in travel form as a druid, but you immediately shift back to your normal form and then immediately shift back into travel form when you are running. So sprint is a 30% increase in speed when you're outside of combat. And that once you turn that on, it stays on, it automatically turns itself on back after combat. Then there's, of course, mounts as well, as you might expect, which are vehicles, and they work the same way as mounts. And they speed you up too.
You get one at 25, 40, 50, and I think it scales at 90, 100, 110, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Something along those lines, yeah. And they're all ground mounts, there's no flying mounts in this game yet, even though you get a ship, which we're going to come on to in a second. There's then the quick travel system, and you can bind at a point, but that's not actually you binding. That's you unlocking that point as a place you could quick travel to. So
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Exactly. It's like a single player RPG, like say Oblivion or Skyrim. You discover an area, you can then use it to fast travel. But you can only quick travel once every 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you bind at those points. It's like, oh, I found a new hub. Is there a binding point here? Okay, let's right-click the binding point to make sure we unlock it. And then every now and again you can use that. You've also got your flight points, which are taxi points, basically. Variety of different vehicles, mostly speeders or hover cars and crap like that. And you have to discover routes for that. Some of those are very annoying, I might add. Drummond Cass is really bad for this.
Yes.
Right.
Like, there are areas where there is no connection. You will have to run. You cannot fly directly into Drummond Cass. You fly outside of the city, and then you have to run in, and then there's like an intercity taxi that you have to use. But you've got to go on foot. You can't just fly directly into the city like you could in, say, WoW.
Luckily, that doesn't happen on any of the other planets that I've seen so far. But for that one, yeah, it's a pain.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is kind of irritating. But then there's a couple of other things. Like, you've got an emergency fleet pass that you can use like every hour, and that takes you.
I think it's every 24 hours actually. There's two different kinds. There's
okay.
a bot. There's one that you get automatically in your abilities, and I don't know what level you get that.
Very early.
I was just there one day. I was like, okay, and it's every 24 hours. But then you can buy some, and those are every hour, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But So there's two different kinds, but they take you back to the fleet. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fleet is basically a big hub location with everything in it. Like trainers, as far as I can tell, every commendation vendor is in the fleet somewhere. So
it's Undercity is what it is. It looks exactly like Undercity.
It actually does, yeah. It's structured in the same way in the like 4 quadrants and things like that. So everything you could pretty much ever need is there, and there's some weird stuff that you might not expect. There's like a lot of flashpoint access, but there's also like the VIP cantina and crap like that, which is just meeting points that you can just sit around. If you want to idle around and chat and do stupid roleplay stuff, you can do it in that, and that's kind of neat, I suppose. And then the last kind of method of travel is the ship-based travel. Jen, you got your ship quite recently, didn't you? Tell us how the ship actually works.
Well, basically, the way that, of course, I'm sure Jesse got his ship the same way. I didn't have to steal mine.
I nicked mine. I am so awesome.
Which I thought was quite cool. I was like,
great.
I didn't get to steal mine. I basically killed someone and I got rewarded a ship. And it was there in the hangar. And so basically, you go to your hangar and it's like this marvelous cutscene, and it's like, wow, this
it's
is
so silly
mine.
because the music's like, you're an evil character. The music's like, it's like really joyous, and your guy like smiles and runs up. It's like, there's no way.
I know.
It's so silly.
And then, like, you go into your ship, and it is huge. Like, our ship is massive as Sith Inquisitor. It's huge. There is no reason to have that many rooms. Basically, you have, like, your own, like, medic bay. You have your own little crafting area. You have, the control area, the star map. You have a conference. You have a freaking conference room with all these chairs, which makes no sense because other members of your party can't even get onto your ship, as far as I know. We tried this earlier.
We tried it and we couldn't. Yeah, that was actually really disappointing. I don't know if maybe there's a time later that you can do this, but you can't visit other people's ships and just kind of hang with them and travel with them. Like, you can't do it. You have to travel in your own ship. That, I think, is something they could do with putting in. I know it's not important, but you can share almost everything else in that game, even if it's just in spectator mode. The idea of, like, going into conversations that you have no part in because it's a class-based quest, you can still watch. You can't make decisions, but you can still watch. But the ship is like, nope, this is private. No girls allowed.
Well, I think part of that is because, again, you do have conversations with your companion that are supposed to be private, all of your storytelling elements that are supposed to be very, very secret. What business would I have in having a bounty hunter aboard my ship when I'm talking to, Darth whoever? That would
still dragged you along on some very secretive stuff. That is
this is true.
You were okay with that. You were okay with, say, these really important... The mission that I dragged you on, with one of the last parts, was... I don't want to... Again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers. We're all trying to avoid spoilers as much as we can here, because it would ruin it for people. Was incredibly secretive and potentially very damaging to the Empire. And you were okay with coming along that, but you can't be on my ship and hear about Mako's little problems and her HoloNet implant and how she's really confused and all that. You can't hear that. That's not okay.
I guess the other problem would be, though, is that if you went on someone else's ship and you went to another planet, for an instance, and then you broke your party off, that other person's ship would be on a different planet. So it's like, how would they get back? Without breaking the story element.
They don't care about that. I've gone to Balmora, used a fleet pass to get back, then found a ship on the fleet and gone to Nar Shaddaa and been like, you know what? It doesn't even matter. I'm okay with them not caring about that story point. Like, whatever. Your ship just flew there by itself. It's like the Herbie the Love Bug of spaceships.
Well, the argument you make is the protocol droid did it. The protocol droid did it. He was there. He was the guy that brought the ship along to you. He's basically your chauffeur, your butler, and your crafting bitch.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. My hope is that the ships, because they promised, like we said earlier, they promised the guild ships. I hope that they can take things that you've done, or I don't think it's happened yet, but maybe it does. Besides all the crew members you have, I would like it if they took some of the things that you did and put it, like, you have an entire storage bay.
Yeah, visual representation
you killed a monster,
of it. Yeah.
And there's like a Rancor head in there or something. I would love that.
That would be so easy. as well. Considering they already... If you look at your achievements list, it will tell you, like the major characters, it's told me that I killed the final boss on the Black Talon. That is in my achievements list. Hell, the person's face is even there. To have a trophy to that would be the easiest thing in the world. Again, maybe it is in the game in some respect, that we just haven't seen it yet, but if it's not, that seems like a really obvious addition.
Yeah, like you could have your personal ones in your ship, and then anything your guild does could be in the guild ship.
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
Something like that would be so simple, because you have all this room, like you were saying, we have all this room in there, and you have 6, maybe 7 crew members in there, and it's great. Thank you for putting those crew members in there and filling the ship up, but there's so much ship that little things would just, I think it would make the game just that much better.
Yeah, I love the fact that we were talking about travel and we've gone right into achievements, and trophies, and titles, and little trinkets. Like, nobody actually explained how travel on a ship works. Nobody.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, so basically you go into your like command room, I guess you could call it, and you have your own chair, and of course, as you would expect, but it is like the most awesome chair because you have all the windows and everything. You actually get to watch.
There's actually 3 chairs there, by the way.
Are there? I only
it's
see the
disappointing
one.
since no one else can go join you.
Yeah.
Forever alone on your ship.
It's like you're having a Picard moment, Star Trek, Star Wars, we can make cross-reference, but I mean, to have the quintessential, captain's chair, because no one gives a crap about Han Solo, unless you can have Han and Chewie right there, because they were never apart, it was always both of them together. And so you have like your chair and you click on your little, star map and you select whichever planet you want to go to or whatever region, and then it'll narrow down like all the different areas you can go to. But then you get, the travel cutscene. So every time that you take off from someplace, it shows your ship coming up and out. And then every time that you go to land,
That's not your thing to watch a ship move,
Yeah, and then of course when you land, it's the same thing. But travel is so quick. That is one of the best things about it, is that it's so fast. Not like, oh my gosh, will this griffin ever land? Will this bat rider just please go screw himself, because it's taking forever for him to fly. So it's none of this, world flight business, no right click here, alt tab and mine some stuff in Eve in a different game while trying to get back to WoW. Instead, you can focus on one game and, maybe go grab a drink and you're done. It's finished.
I think the only problem with that argument is that, like, the Griffin flights are still there. Like, the speeder flights are Griffin flights. But the way that let's just say that every single area in TOR is its own continent. Every planet is its own continent. So the travel between continents is what you're doing on the ship. But then the local travel in these large areas is still done by flight path or by running. And
it's like the Cataclysm portal system.
Yes.
So you go to the zones by portal. So really your spaceship is an area between load screens, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And that's much better than portals. I mean, I don't think there's any argument about that, being able to just go talk to your crew members and do some stuff, and then it's like, okay, right, I feel like I want to go to this place now. And again, it was just like KOTOR, and it's just like Mass Effect. There's nothing wrong with the system at all, and it's nice to have them actually in the game. But people do need to understand that when we say it's quick for travel, we do not mean on the planets, because it's not. There is quite a lot of running around, especially at lower levels. And this is a complaint that a lot of the guys who played KOTOR and Mass Effect but hadn't really played a lot of MMOs came up with in the beta. And it's like, why am I running around and doing nothing? Because that is there, and there is downtime there.
Well, it's good that in the beta they took advice from the players, because early on in the beta, and I'm pretty sure you were around the beta this time as well. I'm not clear on that, though. But early on, in and out. There were half the flight paths, and when you use your waypoint or the Hearthstone in this game, whenever you use that, it took you to whatever the last one is you checked in at. So they took the advice people gave, and people said, that is so dated, just give us the option. And so they basically said, all right, you click on that button that sends you back to wherever you want to go now. So if you've been there, you can go there. But you aren't locked into like, well, I was most recently at Alpha Point Omega. and now I got to go back there and then run all the way back. Now if you're way on the other side of the planet, you can go back to like Cass City or whatever.
Yes, you can. That's good.
So
there's no reason for that not to be there.
Right. It's a simple thing, and it's pretty great they put that in. I think when it comes to spaceship itself, for me, one of my favorite parts of the space combat, it's essentially, it's like they took X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and Star Fox and combined them. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just one of, you don't really control your ship all that much. It's Star Fox. You fly the path of where it's at, but to me, visually, it's so beautiful. That's the best part of the game for me. It looks gorgeous.
It's pretty.
It is. It's really fun to look. And then, of course, some of the missions. There's one, I can't remember what it's called right now, but basically it's you, a bunch of other fighters, and like 3 capital ships taking on a Republic fleet. It's so much fun because it's just like, destroy this fleet, and it's like, yes, sir. Pew, 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 pew. And you get experience, you get commendations, and I think they're max 5 minutes. Like the longest one's 5 minutes.
It's bombing runs, essentially, but you have some more control there. And that it's funny you should mention that, it's like kind of like Star Fox. It's like Rebel Alliance. If any of you remember that game, it's Rebel Alliance. It is on-rails Star Wars combat. It's got all the feel of Star Wars, but without the control. And I suppose a lot of people were expecting more. But to me, the fact that it's even in the game to begin with is kind of neat. And that it's something else to do. It's a diversion. Are you ever forced to do it? No, you're never forced to. And you get like silly titles. Like I think you can get Flyboy or Your Name, the Pilot. And later on, you get like better ones that are. I'm trying to think of what it is. It's something ridiculous that it's a spoof off of something. Little Annie says in the very first Star Wars, but I can't remember what it is now. But you get things like that, and but other than that, it's just there for fun. There's no reason to do it. It gives you a ton of experience for the time you put into it, and it's kind of like a another money dump. Yeah, because you upgrade as well, don't you? Yeah, but really, there's no you don't have to. It's fun though. I mean, it's a nice diversion from using my lightsaber to kill stuff. All you do is fly around and blow stuff up, and then of course your guy makes like one-liner, witty, sarcastic remarks while you fly around, and it has the epic space battle music, and there's a lot of bright, shiny lights, and I'm easily distracted by them. I'm like, yay, pew pew. So I love it, but I can see how people would hate it because there's no real reason for it to be there. But they were kind of like, you know what? Enjoy, have this too. Yeah, I think that the game benefits from it being there at the end of the day, and that it is just essentially a diversion for what you're usually doing in the same way that bombing runs used to be kind of original and cool in WoW. And they've taken that and just said, look, people like doing this stuff. Let's make it a full-on part of the game, but optional. And let's actually put some progression mechanics into it so that people aren't doing the same mission over and over again. And it's like, oh, well, I'm getting gold. But here it's like, oh, well, I can upgrade my ship. And my ship's this is going to make me better at what I'm doing here. And they didn't do a lot of that in WoW, aside from, of course, getting your epic flyer and doing any of the bombing runs where you could actually just move around yourself. Benefited from that, but here it's just like, there's progression within the little mini game as well. Mm-hmm. That's cool. I like that sideways progression. I think that MMOs do need more of that because it's an interesting diversion to people. It's actually the thing we were saying about Path of the Titans, wasn't it? It's like, oh, it's a way that I can progress that doesn't involve doing the stuff I was doing for the last 6 years. it makes you feel like, and that's why I hope they flesh out the legacy system. It makes you feel like you aren't confined to this one character, and that's my problem that I had with WoW is I never leveled an alt ever because I was like, I put all this time into this character, and to start over again from scratch, never gonna happen. And then they introduced, oh, you can get this armor and stuff, and you can do this, and then I kept thinking, well, I want to spend those points on something useful for the character I'm playing now, not my alts. And the fact they have these systems in there that can help you with alt things, and they did a lot of planning with this. I think they like I said earlier, they took the time to look at what WoW did right and what they did wrong, and then they went and said, let's pre-plan almost everything we can so we don't have issues. I'm sure there will be issues we haven't thought of yet, but
they tried their hardest to come up with things that would prevent stuff from happening.
Yeah.
That could really hurt the game.
Yeah, it's fairly amazing. We've almost been talking for 2.5 hours about TOR yet, and there's still a lot of things that I would love to cover. And honestly, just for the sake of my sanity as well, because it's now 2:30 a.m. here, we might have to round this up. But I think that what we've just proven there is that, yes, there's a lot to the game to talk about. And as a result, I'm going to call this impromptu podcast TORk, TORK. And I'm going to be very, very smug about having thought of that name during this podcast. And we're going to put it on YouTube, and I think we're going to release it as an audio. And I think maybe every few weeks we might come back to this. And we might rotate people around and because I would like to get the opinions of people that actually play on Republic, because we all play Empire. And so I suppose it would be nice to get their perspective and the perspective of different classes and specs and levels. The game's worth talking about. That's the point. And as a result, we just did for almost 2.5 hours. So I hope you get the impression from that. But let's sum everything up, I suppose, with a final conclusion on what we've played so far, and nutshell your thoughts. Jen, why don't you start?
So far, amazing story, completely immersed. Combat system, quite good as well. Easily the best MMO so far that I have played to date going into it from initial release. Jesse, your thoughts?
Agreed. I think it's to date, it's the best MMO that has been released. I am curious about long-term playability, so I will we'll do a little asterisk on that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Like, it's the best MMO that I've played so far of what I've played of it. But right now, I still think the big dog in the MMO world is WoW, and long term will be what decides if this takes its spot or not. But other than that, it's a solid game. And if you're on the cusp of like, I don't know if I should play it or not, just give it a try. Trust me, you'll like it. I'm pretty convinced anyone will like this game.
Yeah, I think that coming in from the perspective of me saying about 8 months ago that I am done with traditional hotkey MMOs, the fact that I have today played this game for about 8 hours and enjoyed the vast majority of what I did, with the exception of a couple of moments that made me think, oh god, I don't want to be here, that to me speaks volumes for the quality of the game. And it is the story that has changed my mind in that respect. The fact that the combat is very WoW-esque is definitely a down point. Even if it is more polished, the animation quality is better. The graphics in this game are better. The abilities have more kick to them. They have more oomph. The combat feels a bit tighter. The abilities, even though they're kind of doing the same things as WoW, they might have that little extra thing. The idea that, say, the rocket, the explosive dart, one of my favorite abilities. It's like, well, this is just a pyroblast, but it's not. It's a little dart that sticks to them, and for a few seconds, they flail around trying to get it off, and then it explodes, and then everyone around them flies about 5 feet to the right. You know, this isn't new, but it's satisfying. It's visceral, and it's kinetic. But even that isn't what matters to me. It's because everything that I've been doing through all of these quests that are very standard MMO quests, collect 6 cat teeth, someone has told me to do this, and I've probably had an argument with them about it. And that's great. And every now and again, I can choose to do something involving those cat teeth, which might be evil or might not be. And that's changed the dialogue choices, and even in the long term has given me some kind of benefit in terms of the gear that I'll be able to use at the end game. And everything I've seen up to this point, including how stable the servers have been, including how little lag there is, I've never noticed lag at any point in my play. A server has never gone down, even though I know there have been some servers brought down because the hardware's failed, they've had to replace them. My server has never gone down while I've been playing at any point. There has never been any noticeable lag or weird stuff like that. And there are bugs. For instance, Jen can tell you how much I was raging about the node bugs for gathering.
Yeah.
Some nodes they don't disappear. It's the same thing that WoW's had for the last 6 years. The fact that you'll mine a node, or someone mined a node, and the node is still there and it appears on your map, but you can't mine it. That's there as a bug, and there've been some issues with my companions getting stuck and things like that, but everything I've seen, the bugs and the issues have been less than any other MMO I've played on launch. Certainly on launch. By far, it is the most polished launch MMO I have ever seen in my life. It is so very well structured, and they've put so much thought in, and obviously have worked really hard to try and avoid as many issues as possible, as is physically possible. We still had the queuing issues. That was a problem. It's getting better now. But obviously on the first few days, the queuing was really bad. And the account system went down for a few hours and things like that. But they've done the most they possibly can to learn from previous mistakes. And for the most part, they nailed it. And that's the most impressive thing about it. It is the most polished and most accomplished WoW-style traditional MMO I've seen. And if anything can knock WoW off the top perch at this point while being similar to the game and not taking a radically different direction in the sense of, say, the way that Terra works with this political system and its God of War-style combat, or the way that Guild Wars works and the way that every quest is a public quest and everything is a persistent experience and things change within zones. From a traditional standpoint, this may very well be the last truly great traditional MMO. And is it better than WoW at this stage? It's certainly better than WoW ever was at launch. And honestly, even now, with 6 years of work behind WoW, I still think it nails a lot of the systems better. I think TOR is pretty much, so far, for me anyway, we can always say, oh, it may get worse. That's not real words. Real words. Try the speaking. It may very well get worse as we go through it, but from what we've seen thus far, it is the pinnacle of what traditional hotkey MMOs can reach. I don't think there's anywhere to go from here. Things have got to change radically. I think this is the best that you're ever going to see from this style of MMO.
Now tell us how you really feel.
Pretty much.
That was some big nutshell you had there.
What can I say? I got big nuts.
Oh, wow.
I'm staying out of this family quarrel. I will stay out. I'm not going to judge.
Up, I knocked it the hell down. That's what happens when you swing them big nuts. Anything that gets in the way is gonna fall. Whatever the case, that was
your subscriber count may after this.
No, actually, I can tell you for a fact, from having put out episodes of Terraria, I can safely say that testicle jokes, they get the subs. That's a fact.
Fans love a good testicle.
Yes, they do. They are predictable in that respect. But, well, that was a long-ass podcast, folks. I call it TORk. I'm proud of that. I don't care if Jesse wants to name it something else, or Jen. It's getting called TORk. It's as simple as that. We will perhaps revisit this. I think it's very likely to happen, most likely with shorter episodes than this. But we may come back to this point because TOR is really interesting. And if you have any doubts, honestly, if that podcast hasn't convinced you to at least give it a shot, then I don't think anything will.
Are we getting paid by BioWare for this?
No.
We request money.
I think maybe Stephen Reed might give me a longer interview next time. That might happen.
I mean, because honestly, I mean this because there's probably someone listening right now who's like, really, you guys are just trying to sell this game. No, like, I really truly enjoy it. I don't think anyone here is like, you really need to play this. Like, wink, wink. You know. Meanwhile, like, thank you for that.
You don't
check,
sell a
BioWare.
game by doing a 2.5-hour podcast. You don't.
Yeah.
You want to sell a game, you do it in like 5-minute chunks. You know, we talked about it for this long because we actually give a damn about it. It's as simple as that.
It's still trying to sink into me that I'm playing an MMO again. Like,
yeah,
you know, I thought that I thought after WoW that I would not.
You were done.
I thought I was done. No, I'm happy about it. I'm happy that there's actually now a game that is on launch. You know. Asterisks abundant.
Of course, yeah.
This good to bring me back to an MMO game and that actually has RPG elements that aren't, they're all about the MMO, not about the RPG. This is both. And so far, I could not be happier with the game on launch. But yeah, this does sound like 2 hours and 30 minutes of we love TORk, we love TORk.
Yeah, it's been, the majority of it's been positive, and that's because the majority of the game is positive.
Yes.
So was the majority of WoW 6 or 7 years ago when it came out. We raved about that. But this is better, which is what you would have expected. It's been 6 goddamn years. Someone had to make a better game eventually. TOR at this stage, in my opinion, is a better game, and it will grow into a better game as well. And
Activision is just trying to figure out a way to buy BioWare right now.
yeah, EA is going to be saying to hell with you. I'm sorry. It is kind of sad that the 2 biggest MMOs in the world are also run by the 2 evilest publishers in the world, but I guess when you're going to make a game that cost over $130 million, you're not going to get funded by Paradox, are you?
No.
This might be why I'm so excited for the next few years, is because with Blizzard's secret project, like I'm waiting for them to like unload barrels and stuff. I want to see something big.
Competition. I
Yes.
said it 1,000 times. Someone has to come along to try and knock WoW off its perch to make Blizzard give a damn again, because for the longest time they haven't.
I can't wait. I can't wait because whatever comes next is going to push the limit so far, be it what Guild Wars 2 does or anything beyond that. Whatever's coming out, they have to at this point. And I can't wait to see what that brings, because that will be amazing.
All I can say is them pandas better be damn good. It's true facts, because they've now finally got a game that has nailed it down on launch, hasn't majorly screwed up everything to kill the game within a month, that they're going to have to now compete with. And they can't do it in terms of production values. They cannot do it in their engine, which means they've got to do it by innovating. And that's exciting. A deathly silence ensued. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to TORk. My name's been TotalBiscuit. Don't tell me that wasn't good.
It was a good point.
Don't tell me that wasn't good.
Step over your good point.
Yeah, there's nothing we could have said to further improve on that.
What did you want us to be like? Yeah, sure thing, boss. Good point there. What did you want us to say?
I've done this shiz for over 10 years. Do not tell me I'm not good at it. There you go, folks. A very long talk about TOR. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Now this is where you...
Ladies first.
Yeah.
I have been Intricacy, known as Jenna Bain, the better half of TotalBiscuit.
Thanks.
And I have been Epiphany, known as Jesse Bain,
What?
the other better half.
You know what? I never asked for this. We'll see.
We did not just Adam Jensen his way out of this conversation.
We'll see you next time.